We'll call our regular council meeting for Monday, June 25th, 2018 to order. First order of business on agenda this morning is our delegations, and our first delegation is our city staff in attendance regarding our Solar Day proclamation. Morning, Mel. Morning. How are ya?
Good.
Morning, Kit.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Welcome.
He's holding the sign.
He's helping you
The
today.
sign guy?
Yeah.
That's a good deal. Whereas throughout history, people worldwide have celebrated the summer solstice and recognized the power and energy of the sun and its importance to all life on the planet. And whereas on June 27th, the City of Dawson Creek will be promoting solar technologies and sustainable communities throughout our community, British Columbia and Canada. Now therefore I do hereby proclaim June 27th, 2018 as Solar Day in Dawson Creek and encourage all residents in and around the community to celebrate the benefits of solar energy.
Yay. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. And it looks like it might be raining on June 27th, so we're just going to proclaim all summer long as Solar Days.
Nice.
And I would like to just brag about our water fill station that goes out around to the events is solar powered.
Oh, cool.
So we don't
Good.
have to hook up to a generator, and it worked really well for the soccer tournament this weekend, and
Great
the
job.
grad read perfect.
Great job. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming in. Thanks, Kit.
Thanks. See you now. Thank you very much.
Our next delegation wasn't able to get here this morning. Our next delegation this morning is Steve Oliver from Special Olympics British Columbia, and David's joining you, and in attendance this morning to proclaim Global Day of Inclusion. So come on up, guys. Morning.
Morning.
David, morning.
Morning.
Good to see ya.
Yeah.
Whereas 2018 marks the 50th anniversary of the global Special Olympics movement, with the first international Special Olympics Games being held on July 20th, 1968 at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois, USA. And whereas the Special Olympics vision for a more inclusive world has grown over 50 years to become a global movement for change and social justice that uses sport, health, and education to empower people with and without intellectual disabilities around the world. And whereas Special Olympics is the global leader with more than 5 million participants in more than 170 countries in providing continuing opportunities through sports for people with intellectual disabilities to realize their potential, develop physical fitness, demonstrate courage, and experience joy and friendship. And whereas Special Olympics builds communities of understanding, inclusion, and respect, and whereas the Special Olympics goal for the next 50 years is to end discrimination against people with intellectual disabilities, now therefore I do hereby proclaim July 21st, 2018 as a Global Day of Inclusion in Dawson Creek. Thanks so much for coming in this morning, you guys.
Thank you very much.
Such a great cause, and really appreciate, obviously, the effort and energies that you put into what a remarkable event this has become.
Thank you. Yeah, we have very, very good community support, and we very, very much thank everybody that I know the Bear Mountain Ski Hill is a supporter of our alpine skiing, so, and that's a great thing as well. So thanks everybody for have this day of inclusion.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. And nice to see you too.
Our next delegation this morning is Kit Fast from the Dawson Creek Watershed Societies in attendance regarding an art project as part of the Stream Keepers Camp. Morning, Kit.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Morning, Council. Thank you for letting me.
Good to have
in
you.
again.
Good to have you here.
So I'll be real quick. We're proposing an art project as part of our Stream Keepers Camp. Do around the first week of July. And what I'm looking for today is just approval in principle to have the project, which would be cutouts of fish that are native to the Dawson Creek, put up along the 15th Street Bridge, along the pedestrian guardrail. It's in the PDF that was sent in earlier. And so the fish cutouts would be, this would be 3 different sizes, so this would be the largest size. And it would just be, we're talking with one of the companies in town to do metal cutouts. And then a bracket would be attached to the back so that the fish could be attached properly to the bridge. And then in 5 years or 7 years, if you had to repaint, you can take them down, repaint them, put them back up so that they don't deteriorate over time. We're hoping to do this part of the Stream Keepers Camp, and so that would be the first week of July. So what I could do is have a prototype done, bring it to city, have city staff look at it, and if they're happy with what we're doing, then we could just carry on with that. It's mostly just to raise awareness of what's in the creek and the habitat and the species that are supported by the habitat. I know that if you're a part of One Island Lake, then you know that there's great blue herons and belted kingfishers out that way. And I think most people would be surprised that on the lower half of the Dawson Creek, you can find great blue herons. And when I was in the creek, down on the creek last week, scouting things out, there was a belted kingfisher. So the only reason those species are in and around the creek is that there's minnows to feed on. That's the only reason they're there. So I've taken some good natured ribbing about the types of fish that are found in the creek and the size that we're going to represent them at. But the idea is that those species are valuable because they bring in other species and they maintain the natural habitat. Any questions? Pretty simple.
Okay. Any questions for Kit?
He answered. I was
you're gonna
wondering
get
if the
ripped.
fish were going to be a realistic size or exploded. I mean, isn't that a bit of deception you're going to be involved with?
The species are true. So there's
Yes.
the 3 shapes that we would cut out would be true to the creek. But the size, I mean, if you put up a small fish on, no one would ever see it. So the idea is just to create a splash, take some artistic license on the size and color of the fish. The example that I have put in the PDF is from New Westminster. And of course, one of the problems that we run into is that if you consult down south for the Stream Keepers Camp, you have someone come up from the south, and they're all about protecting salmon habitat. That's all it's all about. So when you come up here, everything's different. Has nothing to do with salmon, so we have our own species, but they're there for a good reason, to feed the birds. So.
Good. Anything further for Kit? Kit, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it as always, and the passion for the creek is always, like I say, so appreciative of the work that you guys do. And so we'll bring it back under Mayor's business,
Okay.
and Council will deal with it at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that ends our delegations. Next item 3 is new councillor business. Councillor Parslow.
Yes, thank you. Last week was pretty warm, as we all know, and I was swimming at the swimming pool and got engaged in some conversation with some people concerned about Rotary Lake and where were kids doing, what options kids had, and they raised the affordability issue of the swimming pool for so many families. And so the reason for the motion I have before council is that you know, we have a problem given our geography with access to nice clean swimming holes, and we do have a wonderful swimming pool. And so I would like to, until we get the Rotary Lake issue sorted out one way or the other, I feel that this motion is necessary for this summer. My motion is that the City of Dawson Creek waive the public swim/family swim admission fees for the youth and family categories for the month of July and August 2018. Further, the City of Dawson Creek waive all transit fees for the months of July and August 2018. Further, the funds not used for the splash park remaining from the $66,000 that the city provides for the Mile Zero Park Society for Rotary Lake maintenance be applied to the Ken Barrett Aquatic Centre budget.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Wilbur, discussion.
So I'd like to
Go ahead.
speak to this. I have taught and appreciate very much the interaction with our CAO on this. I always appreciate it. It's not
Just
quite
this time. No, don't feel any offense, sir.
No. But Duncan has some information I think is important for him to share. Obviously, there will be some cost implications. Possibly some additional staff may be required on those hot summer days in the form of additional lifeguards. But I, in the spirit of follow up to that public meeting we had, where the passion for access to a family facility such as Rotary Lake was clearly expressed, I think partial in response to that, we can facilitate the access to the swimming pool. Many people do have an affordability issue. I know they do. And not everyone can afford to go off for a holiday. And so it's in that sort of spirit that we try to keep the spirit and the intent of Rotary Lake somewhat alive by encouraging and enabling access to our swimming pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Duncan.
So, through your worship, just to talk about some of the costs, just so everybody's aware. Just looking at the family and youth drop-in rates over the summer, so that doesn't include adults and it doesn't include seniors, but just family and youth, if we were to waive fees for all of July and all of August during drop-in swimming, so not swimming lessons or any of those other programmed, we'd be looking at about an average of 20. I think our lowest has been in 2016, 18,000, 2015, 19, 2017, 23. So you're about $20,000 on average of projected revenue loss.
For both months?
Total, yeah.
Total?
20,000 over July and August. Looking at transit fees, they varied a little bit. In 2016, we were around $8,000. In 2017, we were around 11. So again, talking about $10,000 on average. And the third part of the resolution regarding the Miles Zero Park Society, so I followed up with Dale Campbell. He was away, but indicated that he didn't believe there was a lot of funding left. There is still a lot of costs taking place at Rotary Lake, whether it be lawn care. They've also implemented the splash park, and they have an attendant. So he said he could look at that when he returned, but he didn't think that there was going to be a substantial amount of money left over. They have to pump the lake out on a day like today when it fills up. They have to keep it empty. They have to fence it off. So those are pretty much the costs, anyway, of the proposal.
So 30.
About $30,000 of projected revenue. So I would add that this is will impact us twofold. One, in the projected revenue side, but also there's an increase in cost. Our ratios are usually 1 to 50 for lifeguarding in the pool. And so if those numbers increase significantly, then we'll have some additional costs, chemical as well.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, comments? Councillor Rogers?
I got a problem with the transfer fees. If Rotary Lake was open, those people would be finding their own way to get down to that pool anyways, whether it be transit or not. So waiving transit fees doesn't really, I don't think that we should be doing that. Besides that, what about the people that have already purchased their transit fees for July and August? Do we refund them as well? That's just my only thoughts around that.
Thank you. Councillor Javecka?
Well, I'm surprised that this motion came from a fiscally responsible councillor.
I have my
Maybe
wrong-
my
I have my
assumptions
wrong-
were wrong, but anyways, my comments, I'm not in support of it. I think the interpretation of the benefits of Rotary Lake have been misinterpreted, I guess. Rotary Lake to me is more of a beach experience. It's not a swimming thing. In fact, I'd say probably 90% of the people that go there don't go there to swim. They go there to, it's a gathering place for families, and, you know, they take their lawn chairs and blankets and picnic basket, and, you know, the kids go and splash in the water, and yeah, there are a few older kids that will swim, but the whole total depth of the lake in the middle is only 5 feet, and that's just for a small portion of it. So I don't see it as you know, a swimming experience. It's more of a gathering place for families. And I agree. I mean, a lot of families don't go on holidays, or the spouse works out in the oil patch in a camp or something, so they have that opportunity. So, you know, along with the fact that we are pressed for finances, we've, you know, as is demonstrated in the survey on fiscal gap, people are concerned about roads, and, you know, so we've got lots of things to spend money on. So I'm not in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that, I'm in favor sort of the intent of this, minus the transit fees. Having some free swims available for the residents to sort of make up for Rotary Lake, I feel is a good idea. Whether 2 months, the whole summer, I feel like we could sort of increase the amount of toonie days that we have maybe over the summer, or have a, you know, the odd weekend where family swim is a free family swim. I think we could do some things at the pool that would help with the affordability over the summer for the families that would be using Rotary Lake, but I don't think that I'm in favor of the whole 2 months, and I'm definitely not in favor of the transit fees. We used to have changed the schedules around so the buses would go down to Rotary Lake, and the ridership down to Rotary Lake was utilized. So yeah, I'm gonna have to vote against it, though I would appreciate if we could, if this doesn't pass, think about increasing the toonie days, or a few free swims throughout the summer, a few more free swims. I know we do have some of those, but I would appreciate if we perhaps did a few more.
Thank you. Further discussion? So I obviously, when we met with the public meeting, and people talked about, as Councillor Javetkov indicated, the value of Rotary Lake as the infrastructure of enjoying the outdoors and all of that activity that engaged in Rotary Lake. And we're not going to have Rotary Lake this year, obviously. We don't know what the future of it holds, and so that message also from folks was, it was the only thing for us to go to that was free, didn't cost us anything, and we could go in and enjoy the activities down there. And so to me, I think this is a really good opportunity to test the July and August timeframe of the summer months for some recreational opportunity while we don't have Rotary Lake in place, and see what the uptake is for the future of whatever holds for Rotary Lake. I agree with Councillor Rogers' comment about transit fees, because transit was available to people, and so like I say, I'm in favor of the 2 months of free swim, because I think it gives us the opportunity to provide that to our residents who don't fit into that mode of having that extra dough available to do something, and it gives them the free activity. And for $20,000 for the summer 2 months, I think is a good indicator for them for family use. So I'm going to suggest to Councillor Parslow, or request to Councillor Parslow, that we amend the motion that it's 20 grand all in for the swim fees, and not pay the 10 for the transit fees. And I'd like your response to that, if
Well, given it's you,
Yeah.
no,
It was Roger's.
I will,
Maybe everybody else.
should we like me to amend the?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, if my seconder would see to that, I would remove the second part of the motion, which reads, further, the City of Dawson Creek waive all transit fees for the months of July and August 2018.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. Brenda, are we okay there?
Yes, through your worship. The only item I'm thinking is if you wanted to include the maximum amount on in the motion, the 20,000 you were speaking.
Well, we're just waiving the fees for the month because there may be some additional lifeguard costs, there may be some
Yep.
additional stuff that we don't know about, but I'm using the figure that I think it was about 20 from administration. Duncan?
So through your worship, and I just want to confirm that we are to go back to the Mile Zero
And we'll
Park
go-
Society
yeah,
still? Okay.
Yeah. And if there's anything left there. Councillor Javekov?
So is that fee 20,000 for the July and August?
Correct. It's total for the summer.
Councillor Rogers?
And just to be clear, where's the money coming from? Is it coming from the fee for service that we already currently give Mile Zero Park Society?
Duncan?
So through your worship, we will go back to the Mile Zero Park Society and ask them if there's any money remaining. I don't know that there'll be $20,000. So we had some discussion about this on Friday, staff-wise, trying to pull this together and figure out some information. This does not come out of sponsorship. It's not a benefit of an individual group. It's similar to when we waive our transit at Christmas or Christmas in Dawson Creek, or when Mayor and Council does their free swim at Christmas. It's just a waiver and reduction in revenue, but a grant is not required.
So it'll create a additional subsidy potentially to the Kemboric Aquatic
Correct.
Center at the end of the year, depending on their in and out in terms of revenue and cost, like it would any year.
Yeah.
Or just adding a further 20,000 potentially in reduction in operating revenue that they would receive from fees normally paid.
Yeah, and
Duncan?
sorry, through your worship, and typically we're about $550,000 in revenue. And so you'd see an estimated $20,000 reduction there.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Opposed, Councillor Javekov, Councillor McFadden. Thank you. Next item, item 2, we have Councillor Wilbur, who's got species at risk under the Southern Mountain Caribou.
Thank you. So yeah, I did take part in another conference call with mayors, councilors, regional district reps, and Kofi last week. So Kofi put together a package, and I had requested the map so that people could actually see what the federal minister is talking about. So currently, what will go forward to federal cabinet in the fall is a blanket policy under SARA, which is the Species at Risk Act. For us, it's hard to kind of see on this map, but the southern caribou herd actually crosses into, according to the federal minister, where the quintet herd is marked as the northern caribou. And what it will mean if it goes through as is there would be no foot traffic, no vehicle traffic, no resource development of any kind in those areas. For us, that affects Bear Hole Lake. So in talking to staff, if something was to happen at Bear Hole Lake, we wouldn't find out about it till it was too late because we wouldn't be allowed in that area. So if it was contamination or a variety of different things. So they are trying to get, I know the Peace River Regional District is trying to send a delegation to Ottawa, and I know, Your Worship, you've been working on it as well. But Kofi was kind enough to give us all the maps, and we'll be doing some work with NCLGA and reaching out to all the communities. But I think it's really important for my colleagues to do some homework and find out what this actually means, not just for our area, but for North Central BC. Because if it goes forward as is, it affects everything, whether it be forestry, oil and gas, agriculture, ranchers using Crown land for grazing, and for us, our water system. So I'm just putting it out there so people can study it. If they would like the rest of the slides, I can definitely get them to you. But kind of how that phone call ended was we have a very short time over summer to get everybody on the same page and send one message to Ottawa and have them start looking at socio impacts and other stuff. And it's not that anybody doesn't want to protect the caribou, but there are areas marked on these maps where a caribou has never lived. So it's just a blanket policy, and we really do need to pay heed, but specifically for us, it affects Bear Hole Lake. So I just would put it out there for information and ask my colleagues to do a little bit of homework of what the federal minister is going to send forward to cabinet in the fall.
Thank you. And so I appreciate you calling in on Wednesday. I wasn't able to do so, but the work on the Southern Mountain Caribou has been probably raised to the regional level over the last 2 or 3 months. And I know I was at a meeting about 2 months ago in Fort St. John with the Minister of Lands, Natural Resource Operations, and they were bringing forward the issue of this Southern Mountain Caribou. And they go through federally a series of designations under the Species at Risk Act. And once the species is threatened, and that's where they feel the Southern Mountain Caribou herds are threatened. They're not at risk yet, but they're threatened. And certainly some of the herds, and as Councillor Wilbur has indicated, in the Quintet, the Narrowway, the Graham, the Pine, are in that threatened area. And so the only protection comes from the federal minister of environment, and the only legislation that is in place is that protects habitat. And so when they put an order in place that it's a protected area to protect the habitat of the species, then it's completely restricted from all industrial or other activities. And so you're absolutely bang on. Its impacts are forestry or mining or oil and gas, recreation, tourism. Nothing goes in there. And the science of determining the herds and the state of the health of the herds is really the difficult part, because they don't have a ton of data to demonstrate the baseline of where they are, where they've been, and where they're heading in terms of that at-risk act. There's herds up in northeastern British Columbia, up in the northeastern corner of the province northeast of Fort Nelson, that are also showing exactly the same diminishing in herd health with absolutely no activity going on in it. And so they're such a sensitive species in some respects that they're worrying about how they're being impacted. And as Councillor Wilbur says, nobody's saying we don't want to protect the herds, but just understanding before you make wide-sweeping decisions that could impact the forestry allocation, the forest allocation licenses, the mining for Tumbler Ridge, the forestry for Chetwynd, RLP could be impacted by the allocation of the resource. And so we've got, at the Peace River Regional District, we're going to look to hiring an expert in the area to be able to help us define the herd health. And then also for us to be able to reach out, and we did, to the Minister of Forest Lands Natural Resources a month ago when we were down there, and we met with the minister, we talked about it, and we were also suggesting that it might be worthwhile for us at the regional district to put a delegation together to go to Ottawa to ensure that we have that voice at the table with the ministry, both provincial and federal, to say, you know, this is a significant issue to us, and we don't want to be left on the sidelines as it relates to the socio and economic impacts of this wide-sweeping legislation that could be enacted. And the federal minister only has that. That's the only piece of how they can put that wide-sweeping act in place, is by the habitat. And so anyway, we got some work going on, but it's very significant. I know the industry, Canfor from Chetwynd were in Peace River Regional District recently and did a presentation at our last meeting. And I know that a number of the companies have been reaching out, and Tumbler Ridge impacted by the mining. There's herds that are now down in the southeast corner of the province with 3 females left in the herd. And so you know that the genetics of herd health is going to need more than, in some cases, I think the Quintet and the Narrowway, there's 25 and 30 animals left. And the genetics of herd health are really driven by much larger populations than that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with it, and it's really critical for us to be involved in it, and certainly we've taken that role from the Peace River Regional District as well as now the North Central. So thank you for bringing it forward.
No, thank you.
Any questions from anybody on it? Thank you.
I do have a couple more things, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Okay. We have a young man in town. We always recognize our teams and stuff that are doing great things and going to provincials and stuff, but we have a young man named Riley Pelfey. He's 15, and he has a great passion for bodybuilding and has chosen a very healthy lifestyle. And he's just been signed on by a major company that's in that industry. And he's going to be going down to Venice Beach, California this summer and competing. He'll be the youngest competitor there. So I just wanted to say congratulations, Riley. Keep up the good work. And at an age group where you want to have leaders and good examples, I think Riley's doing that for his generation. So I just wanted to mention him. Mel kind of touched base during solar days about the water fill station. So we did have it at the soccer park tournament and grad, and so Melanie's built a spinning wheel that has different items on it, and so we use it as a game, and we talked to the community about can these items go into your curbside recycling bin that's coming out, and some of them were bang on, and other kids were running out to the field to tell their mother that no, you cannot recycle straws, so we don't need straws. So it was a great, fun, educational piece, and I just want to thank Mel for putting that together because they had a blast with it, and we're bringing other people to try it out. As well, I attended Northern Lights College to do the proclamation for Aboriginal Day, which is June 21st, and so it was great to see the turnout there, and they had the little jiggers, and they've been teasing Grandma that she really needs to come up for a name with these little dancers, but they're the cutest little things, and we call them the little jiggers, so it was great to see them out and all the drummers. As well, I know the city had put it up, and I know I put it on my Facebook, but Mackenzie was in the BCAA race for the park contest, and they were one of the 3 communities that won, so congratulations to them. And lastly, but not least, congratulations to the grad class of 2018. It was a great procession. I did live feed it again. And the second year in a row, just wise advice to parents. If your child doesn't know how to drive a standard, don't borrow a standard vehicle for them. We had a few, it's the second year I almost got run over because jumped the clutch. But anyways, that's just a little word of advice for the future. But congratulations to the class. They looked wonderful, and I think they really enjoyed their red carpet experience.
Thank you. Thank you for going to the college and the Aboriginal Day celebration. Any other councillor business? Thank you. Item 4, minutes of a regular meeting of council of June 11th for adoption. Councillor McFadden, second Councillor Schumann. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Any business arising out of the minutes? Correspondence, 6.1, we have a letter from Jonathan Cote, Mayor of the City of New Westminster, regarding changes to the Strata Property Act. Councillor Parslow?
Move that we receive it for information.
Thank you. Second to Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. 7.2, we have report 18100 from the Deputy Chief Financial Officer regarding our consolidated actual to budget variance report.
Excuse me, through your worship.
Sorry?
No.
There's still 2 more items, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm going from my hard copy.
It's like, what?
Nice card.
Where did he go?
How come his
I'm going to get us
agenda
through
is
today.
different?
Just going to bounce around and get rid of a couple. 6.2, we have a letter from Tyra Henderson from the Regional District regarding Collins Exhibition Park, and I'd like to speak to this if we can get a motion, but at our last, or month ago meeting when we were dealing with Collins Exhibition Park and the decisions, and I had made the request or made the presentation to the rural directors about the state of Collins Park and the fair and the importance of it. And so just to give them an update, and I didn't make a specific request at that time from them as it related to some financial support to the work, because we had made that request through on the tipping fees. And so I asked them if they would be willing to hear a delegation or hear a request from us later in the year on behalf of the Exhibition Park. Once we know what the plans are for the Exhibition Association, to engage with them and talk about perhaps the 4-H building or some of the other ones that are in place. So this is just Tyra's follow-up letter as a result of that presentation I made to the electoral area director.
Move that we receive it for information.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
that.
Letter from Pamela Morris, Library Manager, regarding swim pool and climbing passes for the summer reading club for the Dawson Creek Public Library. Duncan, can you give a cost approximate on this?
Well, there's no need.
Duncan?
So through your worship, we followed up with the library, and it's 150 swim passes and 50 climbing passes, which would be about approximately $1,300. But as Councillor Parslow noted, I'm not certain if this is specific to the summer. If it is, you've waived youth passes at the pool for the summer.
Yeah. So July and August, and does that include the climbing pass?
Does not include climbing passes. Climbing passes on their own would be approximately $500 sponsorship.
Okay. Councillor Shipman.
So this reading club, I think what they're after here is just having the prizes to give to each of the kids. So we're providing the free swimming. I would be okay with making a motion that we provide them through our sponsorship fund some climbing wall passes. So I'd make that as a motion.
Thank you. For $500.
Yeah.
Seconded, Councillor McFadden. Discussion. Sponsorship fund or sponsorship?
It's available, correct.
Is available.
We didn't spend it.
Further discussion or discussion? Councillor Javekla?
What if the reading club ends at the end of August and the free swimming is over? Then what do they do for swimming passes?
This was just, their request was just for July and August.
Camp during July and August.
Yeah.
The program only runs for July and August.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Should read your agenda a little better.
The swimming thing is in July and August, but the prizes can be
Love it.
here. When you win a prize, they don't say you can only use it in July and
Oh,
August.
no, you have to claim it, right?
6.4, we have a
We're so glad they sit
I'm gonna
There's
move us
Discord
on.
on this side.
Yeah, you guys are causing me all kinds of grief.
It's better having them over there.
6.4, we have a letter from John Horgan, Premier of the British Columbia Province of BC, in regards to the upcoming UBCM, and just giving us some update in terms of if we're planning to have any meetings with the province, the process to get through and update them. And so I think there's a couple I'm thinking about that we should probably, but I guess what I would ask is if council have any that they could get them to me, and I'll coordinate a list, circulate it back through council with one complete list, and then we'll make the formal request for the Union of BC Municipality meeting in September. Councillor Wilbur?
Because I talked about it earlier, I won't mail it in, but I would really like to talk to him about the caribou and have that discussion.
Yeah, I think we need Forest Lands Natural Resource Operations for
well.
from two purposes, one for the mountain caribou and one from the flood mitigation
Yep.
issue, to me is another one under that. And I think we certainly need to follow up with the Minister of Transportation as it relates to the Greyhound bus service that they put a one-year place a holder in for, as well as the 8th Street Bridge. So there's 2 or 3 of them that I think are, I think we should have, and certainly Minister of Health now, we hopefully will have some indication of that project, but it probably would be worthwhile putting that on the September list as well. So anyway, that's kind of 2 or 3 for me, but I wouldn't mind giving you guys the opportunity to say, if you have a more wholesome list that you want to, we'll coordinate it all together and circulate it back to council. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so I'll just move this for information then, and we can do that.
If everybody has any requests, you can funnel them through to me and I'll coordinate the list. Seconded? Councillor Wilbur, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Reports. Report 18090 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding our 2017 annual report. Councillor Javekla.
See for information.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.2, we have our report 18100. That's the one I really wanted to get to. From the Deputy Chief Financial Officer regarding our consolidated to budget variance report. Councillor
for
Javekla.
information.
Thank you. I was going to move it myself.
He always
but I'll
picks
wait.
the easy ones.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilbur. Discussion?
Picks the ones.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.3, we have report 18-103 from the Development Services Manager regarding the cannabis survey results. Councillor Schumann?
Oh, sure, that's why Paul is making.
Get the first two on.
And further, that staff be directed to prepare, no, I'm kidding. Okay, this is a big one. Better make it bigger. Move report number 18-103 from the Development Services Manager regarding cannabis survey results be received. Further, the staff be directed and host a public meeting based on the following survey results. And I guess these are the survey results. Individuals will be allowed to grow a maximum of 4 cannabis plants. Indoor or outdoor plants must not be visible from public spaces. Non-medical cannabis will be sold in commercial zones, and stores should be located 300 meters from schools, youth facilities, parks, and playgrounds. Smoking, vaping will be allowed in public spaces except areas frequented by children, including community parks, playgrounds, trails, or sports fields. Restrict smoking at special events, public events, for example, beer gardens. Cannabis smoke-free buffer zone around public entrances, windows, and air intakes to 7.5 meters. This applies to business entranceways that are not meant for the public, i.e. laneway doors and loading docks. Develop regulations to allow lounges or cafes where smoking or vaping cannabis is permitted. Permit licensed commercial producers to grow on land outside of the agricultural land reserve within determined residential land use setbacks. Permit licensed commercial producers to grow M2 industrial light and M3 industrial heavy zones land within determined residential land use setbacks. And further, that staff be directed to prepare and required bylaw amendments based on the results of both the survey and the public meeting.
Thank you. Second to Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Councillor Javetkov?
So I'm not really clear on the intent of this motion. At the top it says that there's going to be involved a public meeting, but then at the bottom it says that staff be directed to prepare the required bylaw amendments based on the results of both the survey and the public meeting. So do we see the results of the public meeting before the bylaw is prepared, or do we accept the fact that people can smoke marijuana wherever they want except in parks where kids are, and the requirement to allow lounges or cafes where smoking or vaping cannabis is permitted? Like, I thought that would be in conflict with provincial regulations, because we have a provincial regulation that doesn't allow you to smoke in a public building.
So my understanding of our process now is we'll give this, prepare the bylaw, and this will be the foundation, the fundamentals of the bylaw. We'll give it the first 2 readings. We'll host a public meeting based on, and I'm assuming we would do that public meeting either after the second reading, Brenda? Duncan?
So through your worship, the intent of putting all of these details within the recommendation, we haven't had a lot of discussion at the council level. This is what we heard back through the survey at 850 surveys partially or fully completed. And so the intent is to get some specific information to go to a public meeting with. And as the plan laid out, or the previous plan had mapped out, we would do that public hearing or public meeting prior to updating the bylaws.
Okay.
There's a lot of bylaws that need to be updated, and different bylaws, whether they're zoning. And so we really want to make sure that we've heard the public, but also if council would like to see this again after the survey, after the public meeting, prior to the bylaw update, staff would appreciate that, because if there's going to be a change, we'd like to capture that before the bylaw process, and then there's the public hearing as part of that process as well.
So we get this done, we put the 2 readings in place, we do the public hearing, and then if there's changes to be made, it can be incorporated prior to third and final reading.
So the meeting with the public would not be a public hearing. This right here is talking about a community hall meeting, similar to Rotary Lake. And so the process we've mapped out is we go to that meeting next, whether that's in the next 2 weeks. and then we update the bylaws after that meeting. Now, if council wants to add some feedback before the update in the bylaw, that's appreciated.
So, and I guess for me, I'm just trying to get timelines in place, because we got one meeting in July, one meeting in August. We have October 17th as the
Yep.
date. And so we got some particular critical decisions around that, I think, in terms of the bylaw. And so that, I just wanted to kind of clarify that in my own mind. So go
Sure.
ahead.
So how we've looked at it, if we were going to go out to the community and have a community meeting, we would want to do that in the near future, within the next couple weeks. It's summer. Summer is not ideal for public meetings, but this is kind of the hand we've been dealt with timelines and provincial information. We would get that done. We would update the bylaws over the next couple weeks. We'd like to have the bylaws in front of council July 23rd for the first readings and to take a look at it. And then we would bring it back in August for the second meeting and the public hearing at that time. So if council wanted to have some feedback prior to the bylaws, that would be after the public hearing and before July 23rd.
So, and we need to do this because we got an election, fall election on October 20th, so that kicks in on September 20th, August. So I really think that timeline for us in terms of how it is going to unfold over the next two meetings that we have in July and August is really going to be critical, because then away you go into the fall election. So. Anyway, Councillor Javetka?
So I'm not prepared to support all of the bullets in this recommendation. So, you know, if you're going to a public meeting, it just seems logical that you'd come back with the results rendered down from the survey and the public meeting, and you'd have a new set of bullets that are proposed for the bylaw. That would be something that you know, that you could look at from our perspective, because once you get to the third reading, once you approve the third reading, the philosophy is that we've all approved it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, all you're going to change is public feedback, and we typically don't get much. A public meeting, I think, if it's advertised, it could be as busy as the Rotary meeting. I mean, this is a pretty important issue, and you know, just those two things stick out to me. Having people walking around the streets smoking pot, it just, maybe I'm a dinosaur, but it doesn't feel right to me. And the issue of smoking in public buildings seems like it would conflict with provincial regulations, so I think it needs a bit more work.
Okay. Councillor Parkland?
Yes,
Sorry?
just a few questions. And
Okay.
why did we not include in these bullets something around consumption of products containing cannabis? Why is it just limited to smoking and vaping?
So, through your worship, edibles are not approved, and
Okay.
and the provincial government has, I think provincial or federal, have committed to 12 months review, and then they'll talk about edibles. Is that correct, Alan?
Okay, next point. If we're going to allow smoking and vaping in public spaces, why do we prohibit drinking alcohol in those same spaces? I don't understand the disconnect, because both, you know, in a sense, intoxicate. So is there a reason for that?
So I would have to do a little more research, but my understanding is the provincial government has taken a stronger hand on alcohol and permitted consumption, and how the Liquor Distribution Board controls that, whereas marijuana, they've put a lot of the ability to make regulation on local governments, and every community is doing their own thing.
So there's no discretion?
More discretion in marijuana, but I would, I'd have to caveat that, I'd have to research it.
Certainly,
No,
the,
I think that's right. Yeah, that's right.
certainly the provincial legislation that they're enacting or proposing to enact will allow public consumption
That's our understanding.
of marijuana. And so if we take a different approach, my worry is we're going to have our bylaw enforcement are going to be dealing with that on a real regular basis. And so now there's downloading of us in terms of saying, okay, well, you can have the ability to control it, but you're also going to have to do the bylaw enforcement, and people who are adamantly opposed to public consumption will be all over us, and it'll be our costs for our residents in trying to enact the enforcement. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of it or opposed to it, I'm just saying that's going to eat up a whole bunch more costs for us in the enforcement. That's my word.
Yeah, and I agree with that. On hindsight, I should have realized that the jurisdictional issues. So, but thank you for the reminder. The questionnaire, just a comment about the questionnaire. All questionnaires are very limited. How you answer them depends upon one's understanding. If I look at here, I am not concerned about cannabis legalization. I'm not sure how you would answer that question, because I bet you that many people who made a note there that they were not concerned, 66.5%, I'm sure they have concerns about the use of cannabis, especially by people under the age of 25, given all the research on its, for instance, many youth who develop mental health issues, it's triggered by regular use of cannabis. And so I'm just putting some dampener on interpreting this. I'm sure they're concerned about the health impacts of cannabis, which are well documented. In fact, the Pediatric Association of Canada has come out with a position statement upon that. The psychology group about mental health in youth and so on. And I just one snidey comment perhaps, it's incredible that we've got reasonably good response to this issue of cannabis use 800 plus, and yet fiscal gap is interesting, I won't add any further cynical comments. Yeah.
Duncan?
So, through your worship, just to respond to Councillor Javakov's comments, if council wanted to see the results of the survey combined with the results of the public meeting prior to the bylaws being updated, we could do a special meeting prior to July 23rd, or we could just move the dates forward and we could bring that report July 23rd. When we put together our original schedule, we were shooting for that August 1st date. That's moved a little bit. We weren't going to hit it anyway, but it's moved a little bit now to October. Really, it comes down to when the online provincial portal opens. That's when we'll start receiving our pressure, and I'm not certain when that's going to happen, but I've seen some articles about groups lobbying the province to get that portal open sooner than later.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Yeah, I just want to expand a little bit. I mean, the bullets that are in here are a direct result of the input from the community. That's correct?
Correct.
850 people answered this survey. So all of the other surveys combined that we've done recently are still less than 850. Is that correct? Fiscal gap, all the different, what ones have we done?
I think I would just point, the Sure Water campaign, I think, had more responses, but other than that, this would probably be our second highest response.
So I would say our community is very engaged. I'm sure we're going to hear more from them. These bullet points came out of what the community saw as this being. Whether you're for it or against it, it's coming, it's happening, it's done, and we need to get on the ball and decide how we're going to handle it in the community. And as far as arguments for or against, there are many physicians and groups out there that will tell you the benefits of marijuana. So to me, that is a moot point whether one agrees that it's non-beneficial or there's these effects or not, and the other groups that say there's huge benefits to it. And so, I mean, to me, that's a moot point. The point is, how are we going to handle it in the community? The community's spoken. We're going to go back out to a public meeting. Let's hear what they have to say, and at that point, then determine how we're going to handle it within the community. But the community made those bullet points. It didn't just come from staff, was the point I'd like to make.
Councillor Jabeka?
So, just a question on the survey participation. Was it just the people within the bounds of the Dawson Creek community that responded?
Duncan?
So through your worship, we don't have that much detail as far as who these individuals are, but we can confirm that it's not the same person filling the survey out 850 times. We are able to track that it's coming from different locations. However, we can't control whether it was a resident or a rural or somebody from another community.
Go ahead.
So you can't see how many of my friends and relatives from the West Kootenays participated.
So through your worship, through your worship, that's why
I
staff,
can fall up here, all mine.
that's why staff are,
Community is a pretty wide ranging.
But we could say the same about the fiscal gap survey, could we not?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
there we go.
Duncan?
Through your worship,
Duncan?
that is why staff are recommending a bit of a twofold. We've done the online component, now we're gonna do the local, public meeting, and, hopefully that'll provide the accurate information.
Thank you. Councillor Jabecka?
Yeah, I like that process. I mean, you know, the survey is a survey, and then if you go to a public meeting of people from town and render it down, I think you've got a good product. It's a pretty important issue. I don't think we brush it off with, well, that's what the people want, and let's just do it. Like, it's too important of an issue for that approach.
And I think that's, to me, I'm really happy with kind of where we're at in terms of having engaged. You know what, we've done some work preparing for it and anticipating the federal legislation, the provincial legislation, and I think we're in a good place to be able to move that forward and now put a bylaw in place that we in the city of Dawson Creek feel that will move it forward for us in a proactive manner for the benefit of our community. Yeah.
So to adopt that process, do we need to amend the last line in the recommendation?
So through your worship, if you would like to see all of this information before a bylaw update, you should amend it, and you should maybe just give some direction whether you'd like a special meeting or you're okay with the scheduled meetings.
Go ahead.
I'll make an amendment, a motion for an amendment then to hold a public meeting and then to present the results of the combined survey and the public meeting to council.
Prior to the bylaw update.
For a bylaw.
For July 23rd.
Well, I can go to a special meeting. You know, a special meeting would take an hour, so whatever.
Yeah.
July
So I guess my only worry is we're in summertime. It's going to be tough to get everybody, and as you say, it's an important topic. So if we set the public meeting in advance of that July 23rd, that means it has to be held before the July 16th. Because we have to have that input into our agenda for July 16th, for that Monday. So we got to have the public meeting before July 16th. Brenda?
Yeah, through your worship, we had talked about if we were going to do this, we might have to turn around the public meeting fairly quickly within the next couple weeks.
I'm good with that. I just think like I say, I'm more worried about one meeting in July, one meeting in August, and then you're into September, and you've only got basically 5 weeks from then to get it enacted by October 17th. In the event that something comes out of that process that you want to adopt or adapt to or change. So. The only other one, the only other bullet for me that this doesn't speak to is this is going to add some cost to us in our administration costs. We already know what it's done to our planning, bylaw enforcement, fire hall in terms of inspections for building, and we haven't talked about fees for dispensaries. And I wouldn't mind having that as a topic for the fee, the permit fee for a dispensary, and does it fit within our current bylaw, or does it need to be updated to be able to speak to that, and what should that fee be? Because this is a new game, right, in terms of cost. Duncan?
And through your worship, municipalities are handling this differently. Down in the Lower Mainland, they have areas that have $30,000 business license fees for dispensaries. So we're working our way through this, and we're going to try to capture what the region is thinking. But we're pretty progressive as far as where the other municipalities are at. We're all kind of working our way through it at the same time.
It's going to be it's Brenda?
Yeah, sorry, through your worship, there is an amending motion that was
Sorry.
Yeah.
moved that needs a second.
Okay, thank you. Seconder to the amendment?
What was the amendment?
Just to put the public meeting in place. Councillor Parslow. So anyway, just back to that point, I don't want us to lose that about the permit fee for, as a part of that, because that's going to be within our process. And our staff are going to be overwhelmed come, I believe, and just the amount of interest that I've received from prospective folks who are interested in setting a dispensary. So we need to make sure that we have a fee in place that adequately addresses the costs that our staff are going to, and our community is going to face as a result of this initially. On the amendment, that we add the public meeting in advance by July 16th. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And on the main motion, Councillor Schumann?
Oh,
Sorry, we're
I was
voting.
voting
I
in
just
favor.
thought you were, you're just anticipation.
I'm voting.
Ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for the work on this, Alex and Kevin and Duncan and all that got us ready.
53. Survey results.
Report 7-4, report number 1805 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding our fiscal gap survey results. Councillor Javetkov?
Move that report number 18-105 from the Director of Corporate Administration, re-fiscal gap survey report be received. Further, that the following actions included in the strategic plan 2015-2018 be marked as complete. Council established targets for buy-in by internal and external stakeholders for the fiscal gap initiative. Staff developed for council and the community educational materials relative to the fiscal gap initiative.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor McFadden, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Report 180109 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding the no parking signs request for 7th Street and 116th Avenue. Councillor Wilbur?
That report number 18-109 from the General Manager of Development Services, no parking signs request for 7th Street south of 116th Avenue be received. Further, that council direct staff to install no parking signs on both sides of 7th Street south of 116th Avenue to the south side of 11622 7th Street.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Javetkov, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7-6, we have report 18095 from the Recreation Manager regarding lease spaces at the Memorial and Kin Arenas.
I had the last big one.
I just lost it.
I'll take it.
Councillor Schumann?
Move the report number 18095 from the Recreation Manager regarding lease spaces in the Memorial and Kin Arenas be received. Further, that the lease agreements be approved for a 3-year term commencing on July 1st, 2018 with an option to renew for further 3 years for the following arena user groups: the Mile Zero Figure Skating Club, the Dawson Creek Speed Skating Club, the Junior Canucks, the Senior Canucks, the Dawson Creek Minor Hockey, the Blazers Hockey Club, the KFC Old Post, Dawson Creek Old Timers Hockey, Dawson Creek Alumni Association, and further, that the first-year rental fee for all groups, excluding the Dawson Creek Alumni Association, which will be set at $1 per year, be set at $10 per square foot for dressing rooms and $12 per square foot for office space, with an increase of 2% per year and adjustments made in accordance to the user's fees and charges for publicly provided parks and recreation services policy.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Can you reread that? I missed a piece.
I'm not taking
Are you
the
ready?
next page.
Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
Oh, look, we're
7-7, report 18104 from the Recreation Manager regarding request for proposal for the Memorial Arena concession. Councillor Rogers?
I can't let her do all the work.
Thank you.
The report number 18-104 from the Recreation Manager regarding request for proposals RFP 2018-23 Memorial Arena concession be received. Further, that council award the Memorial Arena concession contract to Hamilton Food and Beverages Limited, or Services Limited, for a 3-year term in the amount of $5,000 per year plus taxes commencing August the 1st, 2018 and ending April 30th, 2021. And further, that council direct staff to permit the agreement to be extended for an additional 3 years if both parties are in agreement with the terms and conditions.
Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Report 18107 from the Utilities Manager regarding a request for quotations for a street sweeper. Councillor Wilbur?
The report number 18-107 from the Utilities Manager regarding RFQ 2018-21 street sweeper be received. Further, that council award request for quotations 2018-21 street sweeper to Cubics Limited for $293,388, including trade-in of the existing road sweeper plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Javetkov. Discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Just a comment.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's, looks like there's about $60,000 surplus. I just wanted to bring it to Councillor Parslow's attention in case he's, you know.
Didn't read the
got some
agenda.
pauses.
Go back into the.
You know, are you going to?
I'm
deal
not
with
going to
him?
discipline him.
No?
I can't. No, but I will after the meeting. We'll talk.
How come you can't
Report. What's that?
How come you can't decide?
We'll speak after the meeting.
I
7.9, we have report 18101 from the Development Services Manager regarding a TUP for iron relics.
Oh dear.
Are they gonna start fighting over that?
Councillor Rogers.
Scratching your head. I can't read it because I don't support it.
Go ahead, Councillor McFadden.
I'll move that report number 18-101, is that the one?
Yes.
From the Development Service Manager regarding temporary use permit 1801 Iron Relics, 1015 99th Avenue be received. Further, that the permit be issued for a 3-year term.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Javetkov, discussion. Councillor Schumann.
I have a real problem with a 3-year term for a temporary use permit. That's my biggest thing. Like 3 years does not seem temporary to me. I would rather it was a temporary, like a year for a temporary use permit and not a 3-year. I mean, in the first year we could see problems or something, but they've got a 3-year now. I guess we could take it away from them, but I see a. I don't know how I feel about this.
Okay.
Temporary doesn't seem like 3 years.
Duncan, can you explain?
So, through your worship, 3 years is the maximum allowable time frame for a temporary use permit. We haven't changed the zoning, still light industrial. We're really talking about their use and that type of use. And we're really, it's on both sides. One, it's for the owner to see if this use fits and if they can and make this work or this business model work. It's also for the city to see if this type of use is going to fit within that zone as well. Alex, any other comments on just a 3-year time frame?
Your worship, yeah, it's typical that 3 years is a typical suggested time frame for a TUP. If they want to review in 3 years and the business concept isn't proving a good use, we can deny renewal, and they can only renew twice. I mean, the first 3-year term and then the second 3-year term.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov.
I think we have to consider the investment costs there. I mean, if you're, starting up an enterprise like that, it costs quite a bit to get into it, and it's, they may need a little time to at least try and recover that.
Councillor Wilbur.
Yeah, I can't support this, and I know that I have brought it up to staff and we did get a reply back, but it's not to see if it can work, because they were doing it without a permit. They were doing it without a liquor license. My understanding is they are applying or have applied for a special occasions license. But they literally were serving alcohol, charging $10 a person to get in here. They've already been doing this, and to me, this is a come back and ask for forgiveness and, oh, we're gonna give it a try. They've already been doing it. I've heard complaints from people that live not too far from this industrial area. I can't support it. They should have done it in the first place, not come afterwards after they got caught doing it. And then now we're gonna follow the rules and redo it. They didn't build this to have this type of business or see if it would work. They've been doing it, they got caught, and now they're trying to follow the rules. I won't support this.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
So we must have did some consultation. We went out and talked to the neighbors, and how did that go?
So through your worship, I think we had no responses as of agenda deadline. Did we receive after that point? No, we did not.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 710, report 18102 from the Development Services Manager regarding RIPS Cleats development permit application for 613 104th Avenue.
And this
Councillor Parslow.
I move the report number 18102 from the Development Services Manager redevelopment permit application 18-01 be received. Further, that development permit number 18-01 regarding 613 104th Avenue, RIPS Cleats, be approved pending the required 10-day notification period.
Okay, second, Councillor Rogers. Discussion? Councillor McFadden?
I'll be supporting this. It's great to see a local business growing and expanding. Yeah. Jobs, good news story.
Duncan, the 10 days, and go ahead.
So through your worship, we're always looking at how we can tweak our approach and development permits. So in here we have part of the recommendation that if we receive no comments back in that 10 days that we can proceed and it doesn't have to wait till July 23rd.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything further? Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws 8.1, Parks Bylaw 4371 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Javetkov, seconded.
Adoption.
Councillor Schumann. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8.2, we have report 18097 from the Energy Services Energy Manager regarding solid waste and recyclable material regulation bylaw. Councillor Schumann.
I move report number 18097 from the Energy Manager regarding solid waste and recyclable material regulation bylaw, number 4380-2018. Results of public notification be received. Further, that solid waste and recyclable materials regulation bylaw, number 4380-2018, be adopted.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Do you want to, are we okay to keep going for a bit? Because we're moving along and don't need a break just quite yet. So, Mayor's business updates. So, the Northern Health Board were in Chetwynd about 2 weeks ago, had a meeting, and I attended the lunch and public session with them, and it was just more through our Peace River Regional Hospital District that we had an opportunity to engage and meet with the board. And really it was just, to me, the opportunity to connect with the board, and 2 or 3 issues that were discussed, and obviously the hospital was raised by the Peace River Hospital District, and I think we're still, like everybody, anticipating something from the Minister of Health, hopefully in the not too distant future. I raised the whole issue for us of the partnership with the Peace River Regional District on the study and the data for our housing, affordability housing, seniors housing, whatever that looks like, because there's certainly, you know, Councillor LeBoy from Puskupi gave a really interesting bit of information on out of 26 beds or 25 beds at the hospital, I think 20 of them or 21 of them were all long-term geriatric care patients waiting to get into a long-term care or a further care facility. And it really demonstrates to us how important that acute care facility, of expanding that facility to 44 beds and moving forward with this affordability, seniors housing, whatever that model looks like for the future, is for the community and the region. And so I think, you know, we just can't take our foot off the gas, and I really think that's such an important bit of work for us to get that property, the old Performing Arts Center, the old Grandview School property, moving and get some work underway for that. Anyway, it was a very interesting hour or so with the board, and we made a request to the Peace River Regional District for the tipping fees for the Collins Exhibition Park, demolition of those old buildings and barns and stuff, and the board, the tipping fees turned out to be a lot more tonnage than we anticipated in the estimates. And so committed about 60 grand for the tipping fees, and the board of Peace River Regional District are going to reimburse us 40,000 of that, or waive 40,000 of that. So there's 40 grand of money for us back into that reserve account, and really appreciate the support from the regional district. Last week I was in Calgary, and it's been a while since I've been there, and I really see the benefits of me attending Calgary and interacting with on behalf of our community and industry to promote how important the industry is to our community, and always that upstream, midstream development that's going on in our community, and continuing to build those relationships and work with the industry guys. My first meeting on Tuesday, I arrived Tuesday morning. My first meeting on Tuesday was with CalFrac. I met with the president of CalFrac Canadian, as well as the president and CEO of CalFrac International, and so still pressing, I want those guys back in our community in a big way, and building that presence back that they had a number of years ago. And so my message was, how can we help work with them to encourage those upstream companies that are operating in the region to hire and support CalFrac to continue to build their operations in Dawson Creek. And I know that the two of them both appreciate the fact that we're reaching out and working with them, and so I'll follow that up later in the week with some other meetings. I then met with the Vice President of Pembina and Vice Director of Upstream Operations for Verizon. And now that Pembina has bought Verizon, all of those big plants that Canada has built, Verizon do the midstream processing for them. And now that they've been bought by Pembina, it's all about strategic alliances now in the industry and who's doing what in here. But certainly the pipeline construction, facility construction will also have a big footprint in the region by Pembina and Verizon, and so they were got lots of opportunities ahead of them with facility and pipeline and all of that kind of activity. And so I had a great hour with Chris Roche and Paul Murphy, the Vice President. Wednesday morning I met with TransCanada, the President of Coastal GasLink, Rick Gateman, along with Katie and some of the other folks, talking about transition to operations now, because they're going to have facilities, compressor stations, operations. They're really putting their foot forward on Coastal GasLink. They believe that FID is coming this fall, and now they've announced the further 2 prime contractors, which is really great for the region, because Solaris, Murphy, and Macro are 2 companies that got the 2 stages of the north stage of the Coastal GasLink, which is a huge opportunity for those guys and big local business pipeline companies that were going on. We also talked about a bunch of other work, and there's some compressor stations, and there was just an announcement last week that a project in Alberta, just inside the Alberta border, Gordondale, and our friends from Midwest Pipelines are going to be back into the community. They were here last year with 400 or 500 people. They'll be staging up now. They've taken on their yard, their 11 or 12 acres out at the Green Smart property, and they're starting to stage up, and so they'll come back in fully staffed by September, October with 400 or 500 people, and really great news for the accommodation, restaurants, hotels. TransCanada staff will be here, so their engineering and technical staff, they'll have about 60 people. So there's a project not even in or around immediately in our community, but they really appreciate the facilities now and services and structure they've got here. So that was really a really good morning. Met with CAP at lunchtime, Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, and had a good update on some of the initiatives that are going on with CAP and for our region. Wednesday afternoon I met with Progress Energy, the Vice President of Progress, because they're back into the game now with Petronas, and Petronas, as the parent company for Progress, are now a partner in LNG Canada. And so strategically they're going to be an important component of the development for LNG Canada and Coastal and all of that stuff. So I really appreciated the opportunity to meet with them. I met Wednesday night with Black Diamond Camps, and Black Diamond are operating now the Sunset Lodge out at Braden that they took it over from Encana. When Encana took it from a closed, they sold it, and now Black Diamond are operating it. We've had a lot of feedback from companies in our community, both hotels and restaurants and related, that concerned about Black Diamond being in our community, and so really expressed to them that to us the issue is our occupancy of our local hotels, and if our occupancy loads in our local hotel are at 20 and 30%, and they're taking all that overflow, that's a killer for our community. And why would we support them in water and sewer and all those other ancillaries when we get nothing in return? And so we had a great conversation about that with them, and talked about how they, Wright's Cold Storage, there's a warehouse in our community that's built infrastructure over the last 60 years. And We need to ensure that these guys, when they have these camps in our community, are supporting our local business. And they made the commitment to me that they would meet with Wrights and engage with them and Lawrence's to see what they can source locally and how they can make that work for the benefit of our community. And so I had a really great conversation with them and a really great discussion, and put the emphasis to them on how important it is for them to support our local businesses and also the impacts on our hotel sector. Now, our hotels are still, it's not the same as it was, but I don't think their occupancy is climbing, and it will climb more this summer, and so hopefully that'll be reduced. And then on Thursday morning, I met with Encana and their team, and had a very good hour with them, and it really went through. One of the messages to me was I presented our budget to them, our overall operating budget for the city of Dawson Creek, and our money that comes in and where our revenue comes from and the money that goes out, and how we're building quality of life and pressures and stresses of fiscal gap and doing that, and why it's so important for them to support our local businesses. Because if they don't support our local business sector, why would anybody build a shop or hire local people to serve on our minor hockey executive or hospital foundation and all that stuff? That's where it comes from. And I think it was really beneficial for them to see that budget in terms of $17.7 million comes from residential and commercial taxation, and $9 million is going out in recreation, and $4.5 million in policing, and $3.5 on fire, and $1 million in the airport, and so on and on and on. And so I think it was beneficial, and I did that both with Encana and Art, and talked about how important they are to our community and supporting our local business sector. And the one pitch I made was to all of the industry folks. I'll preface this, was about the airport, and if should we move forward with the airport runway extension, $5 million project, and we can get 3.5 or 2/3 of that money, the benefits to industry and having reliable infrastructure and all of that stuff. So the pitch I made to them was they should be considering helping with the capital cost of that project. And then hopefully when we get it, and if we move it forward to the point where we have the business case, that we can make a business case to them in terms of a return perhaps on landing fees or whatever to help them pay back, but they get the reliability of the service. All of them, without exception, and I talked to each one of the companies about it, were interested and thought it was a really interesting conversation that we should be having with them. So, anyway, so that was 3 days in Calgary, and it was good. And yeah. We had a delegation from Kit from Dawson Creek Watershed asking for permission to put some signage up on the street. Councillor Schumann?
I would move that we give him, I think he was asking for approval in principle, with the final say being staff taking care of that with him.
Thank you.
I'd move that.
Second. Councillor Wilburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Diary?
Nothing to update, Your Worship.
Consent calendar? Councillor McFadden? Councillor Wilbur? Schumann, sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
It's gonna do it one.
Strategic priorities?
Nothing to update, Your Worship.
Media? Austin? No? Good to see you this morning. We'll adjourn before Committee of the Whole for 8 minutes. Go to Committee of the Whole, and we have first item 14.1. We have Sergeant Richard, and Sergeant is in the house.
In the house.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Well, pardon me. Thank you. Well, in case you're wondering, from all accounts, from everything I've heard so far over the weekend, grad was a success. It was, for us, it was pretty much a non-event, which I guess
Awesome.
Yay.
is another form of success. So that's good. I guess going on to the report here. We're continuing targeting our prolific offenders, and although the vehicle thefts have crept up a little bit, not by a whole lot, but they've crept up a little bit, overall thefts have declined. Our drug section has made a number of drug seizures, including execution of a drug warrant on a local individual, and charges are currently before the courts on that. Frauds have started to decline this month to about half of what they were last month, although now it seems like we're getting a lot of calls in about stolen and misused fleet cards for fuel and stuff like that. So the stats show a marked increase in mischief numbers last month. Two reasons for this is that there was a cluster of city-owned property that was damaged during that period, being bus shelters, and we had a rash of a large number of vehicle windshields that were smashed over a period of a couple of nights. So each of those occurrences, of course, bundled together show a marked increase. Even though it might have been 2 or 3 nights out of the whole month, it shows a big increase in the mischiefs, and that's was the cause for those numbers. We were called to 3 overdose files in May and 27 mental health related calls, resulting in 5 apprehensions. And we took 16 impaired drivers off the roads last month. And our traffic accidents went up a little bit, but not a whole lot. But I'd like to take this opportunity to give some congratulations to one of our members, Constable James Debert. I know they came up here in Dawson Creek, forget which year it was, but they did a presentation, the Alexa team.
Yeah.
In order to be recognized for that honor, you need to get 12 impaireds over a 12-month period. And Constable Debert has already attained that 12 in, well, basically less than half the year. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him.
Good job.
Good job.
Any questions? Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, good to see you, Mike. Yeah, this targeting impaired drivers. I just want to read something, okay, and then ask you to comment about it, okay?
Sure.
A recent Health Canada survey found that 75% of respondents believe marijuana impairs the ability to drive, when it comes to pot users specifically, only 50.2% believe that to be true. And among those aged 16 to 19, only 41% believe it affects their ability to drive. Quotation, "We know that cannabis use impairs the ability of safely drive a motor vehicle," said Amy Porath, Director of Research at the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction in Ottawa. "It more than doubles the risk of being in a collision." I won't read on about all the other health problems and stuff. My question is, it's been obviously the time clock's ticking, and there's been concern by police chiefs all over the country about preparedness. Is this local detachment, has it had training in administering roadside testing for pot use by drivers? And how well prepared are we to continue to take these sort of people off our roads?
Without getting into the nitty-gritty, I guess there's 2 answers to that question, Councillor. We've always had the ability to test for marijuana impairment.
Okay.
We have drug recognition experts, which we have at our detachment that we can call on. For example, if I get into a collision and there's suspected pot use involved, they can be called in, and they've been specifically trained to determine whether that's a factor and what levels of THC or whatever's in my body. We've always had that capacity for well over a decade.
Okay.
As far as the local or the recent legislation, how that's going to be rolled out, and any kind of proposed roadside screening devices, that hasn't been relayed to us yet. I know that there are pilot projects going on in the province for the screening devices. I have no information on how well that's working and when they're going to be rolled out, and subsequent training and stuff like that.
So just help me, I'm being a bit dense here. So a screening device, how's that differ from the capacity you've already had for 10 years? Is one that you use after an incident, and the other, is it a more of a proactive procedure? I don't understand the difference.
One's more of a drawn out time, I guess, what's the best word? Examination.
Mm-hmm.
Another one's just like you blow into a roadside screening device for alcohol. It's something right now, roadside, immediate, and the other thing is just more protracted. So
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wilbur?
Not really a question, but it was mentioned to me again when I was dropping my granddaughter off at school this morning, so I said I would bring it up to you. But just the speed of traffic around Crescent Park. So we do have that new park zone, so people are still speeding. But also, we have a lot of people that are flying down the back alleys on the roads of 95th, 96th, and kind of down all the way up to the hill to 94th. And I know Mr. Patterson-Stew, who's constantly vigilant on the speed going on there, himself was just T-boned the other day and was in an accident because someone ran the stop sign on 15th. And so the teacher brought up this morning that they're seeing a huge amount of traffic come flying down these crossroads and either missing the intersections or literally are stopping into 17th right at the school, and also flying up the alley in the morning and after school when parents are coming out that kind of short alley area that where they have to exit the parking lot. So when it happened again this morning that a truck come flying down that alley and we have kids walking to school and crossing, so they just asked that I bring it up, and I said you would be here today so that I would mention it, that we're having an issue with speed in that area around the school.
Okay, no, I'll bring it up in the morning morning briefings and have them give them some attention.
Just some presents maybe, but slow people
Well, yeah, and I know this is the final week of school, and
Yeah.
the kids have other things in their mind than traffic safety.
Yeah.
So it's probably timely.
And that alley can be dangerous because they're coming over a hill, right, and then all of a sudden the school's there, so kind of the main area of their concern. So thank you very much.
Thanks for
that.
Thank you. Anything further for Sergeant Richard? The overdose, opioids, it's been minor, or has it been, it doesn't seem like we're hearing a ton about it. I just wanted to get your...
Yeah, no, it's still happening. I think it cut off the stat sheet, but if I remember right, there was 2 deaths and one that wasn't fatal that we attended to, and I can't speak for the number that BCAS attends that they don't even know about. So,
Okay.
Or we don't even know about.
So is that 2 overdose deaths
Yes.
in May or in June?
It would have been May. This is May's report, yes.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Anything further? Mike, thanks very much for coming in this morning. It's good to see
Quite
you.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
I think yeah, you guys have a good summer. This is the last one for the summer, isn't it?
Well, we go July, one in July, one in August, so.
Oh,
But no cow.
No cow.
Oh.
You're free for 2 months.
You have this
Oh,
summer
thank
off.
you.
Enjoy.
Have this summer off.
Report 14.2, we have the Director of Corporate Administration. Good morning.
Good
Welcome.
morning. I'll just,
Nice to have you here.
nice to be here again.
It's so nice for Brenda
rainy
to
day.
show up for this time of the day.
I just want to talk about the election for a bit. We're joining forces with the regional district, just in regards to buying bulk for promotional items on Get Out and Vote. We are going to be creating our community newsletter with some information on potential candidates, just to redirect people to the province's website. There's lots of good videos there that will, if anybody's on the fence of if they want to run for council or not, that can give them the background that they need to make that decision. We're thinking of sorry, just lost track here. A booth at the fall fair is another thought for the election. I know that there is going to be a booth there for the city in regards to the OCP and the zoning, so we thought we'd just join in there and maybe promote the election.
Good idea.
And at the same time, so we'll get some information together on that.
If I was thinking of running again, we'll be happy to man the booth for you.
Well, I'd have something to say about that.
I don't think we're actually allowed.
Probably not a good idea.
Did the rules change?
The other thing I want to bring up is the administration. We're going to revamp our workspace out there. For quite a few years, admin staff have been working in that space, and a reconfiguration would really help the workflow there, just to give them each their own area. So we're really looking forward to that and hoping things go smoothly. And I believe that's all I wanted to mention, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Brenda. Any questions for Brenda? Councillor Jabecka?
Just a question on the purchasing tenders. A short box crew cab, you obviously went out for bids on a pickup, and you didn't get any bids.
Correct.
Like, so our dealerships
Doing great.
didn't bid on the pickup.
Yeah, there was no bids received, so then the city will just direct buy then.
So is there any indication why, or did they not see it, or just not interested in bidding, or, I mean, why not take a flyer and a Hail Mary and put in a high bid?
Yeah, we were surprised too.
I'll have our equipment folks just follow up to see if there was a reason, but
Weird.
Just a curiosity.
No. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, and under that same area, I noticed painted markings. Is that's for crosswalks and things like that? Is that what?
To Kevin.
line marking.
The rainbow sidewalk at South Peace, is it being repainted then as well?
This time.
Perfect, thanks.
Councillor Parslow?
Just a statement of concern. I hope that no dealers listening or watch this council proceedings based upon Councillor Javatkov's wild statement about putting in Hail Mary bids. It's totally irresponsible. Gee.
Especially for fiscally responsible.
I'm going to have to start reprimanding them all one by one. Councillor Wilbur?
I've behaved myself very
You've been
well
good.
today. I just want to say.
Well, you've been so-so.
Actually, Councillor Schumann, Councillor Schumann just triggered a thought in my head with the rainbow crosswalk. Is it possible to put white in between the colors? I've noticed in a lot of other communities they do that, and the colors seem to last longer, and it's brighter, like it's more visible, because like I noticed some of the colors are actually hard to see against the asphalt, but I know Smithers, Prince George, there's a few communities that actually put the white bars in between the colors, so it's more present there. I just noticed like the purple and the blue are hard to see. It's just something that triggered. It was a trigger.
Thank you.
Squirrel. Squirrel.
Anything further for our corporate administration? Brenda, thank you.
You're welcome.
Report from the Chief Financial Officer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you again. Probably be one of my last meetings with you before our new CFO gets in. Just to let you know, we attended the service capacity review, which I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed the priorities that were brought forward not only by management, but also by staff who are frontline people. So I think we had some really good information that came out of that. We're working at bringing in the leisure services and wellness staff now into the payroll timesheet automation, which we're excited about that. That will be happening probably within the next couple of weeks once we get through taxes. I participated in a water rate analytical tool for from Waterworth or Econics. It's something that I know we've been working on here for the last 2 or 3 years, and information has to get updated for 2016 and 2017 in order to move forward. I have the confidence I can get in there and start updating that information, and hopefully with our new CFO provide some information to you in the fall. So working on that. Still, I guess, with the tax collection status to date, as of Friday at 4 p.m., we were at about 47% collected, which is about par for where we have been in the last couple of years. We're up with our homeowner grants by about 200 from last year, so we're at about 1,778 collected. Our online homeowner grants we're really tickled about, which have increased again, which we're at 611. And to date, our deferrals have gone up 1, so we're at 11 deferrals to date for $21,808. We have successfully met our second quarter reporting requirements, which I'm pleased about that. And I'm really happy that our new CFO, Flavia, is going to be joining our team here in the next couple of weeks and seeing what she can provide not only to our department, but the city as a whole. The kindness meter revenues are at about $245, and that's where we sat as of May 31st. And that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Janet. Questions? Councillor Parslow?
Not a question, just want to draw to the attention of Councillor Javetkov that the new investment strategy will generate 35,000 interest revenue additional, which will more than cover the swim program. So you don't want you to lose any sleep over that swim program. Thank you.
Just as an example, you're suggesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I just so love to weigh in right now. He knows.
What was that? I have
I watched the news this morning with interest that the federal government has $42 billion in uncollected revenue from income tax, and they clearly don't have the staff with which to enhance that collection effort. And so I'm wondering if we can just delay sending any of our due to the federal government for that, to plug that into our cash management strategy. And is that a possibility?
Do you want to make that a motion?
42 billion.
That's what I heard.
Billion. Thank you, Janet.
You're welcome.
14.4, we have a report from the General Manager of Community Services. Good morning, ma'am. Congratulations on your promotion.
And change. Sorry. Good morning. How are you guys?
Good.
Good. So just a few updates on the report itself. Exhibition grounds, everything that was in there besides, they just finished up with some general work for gravel. They were graveling the sites that were removed in that area. And one of the things we want to make sure we highlight, the energy. A lot of their initiatives are a 2 and 3 year payback, so I'm sure you read the report and that kind of stuff, so that's good with the project at KBAC, as well as the tubular LED lights. We are also working with the sustainable Dawson Creek and recycling with Shell Summer in the Park, so we'll be going to 10 parks throughout the summer. We postponed the one that is coming this Wednesday, just due to weather, so we will continue on July 4th at Water Park, working with disc golf as well as sustainable Dawson Creek and recycling. And just a few more things we have to talk about. General Manager, he was ready to hit the ground after last week's service capacity, and he had all us managers together to start outlining some of the work that we will be doing, waiting for the final reports. But we all enjoyed working with Gord McIntosh and being together with all the staff on Monday and Tuesday. And just a few things that we will talk about with some events. So the Swim to Survive that Melina had come and spoke, Amanda came and spoke with you about. We had 3 schools participate, and it was very well received. It was great teaching people how to be safe, educating the children how to be safe in water, whether it be in pools, lakes, or rivers. So it was very well taken, and we'll be doing another one next year. We talked about the Shell Summer in the Park. It's really important for us to work with partners in collaboration. So again, disc golf is working with us. They're going to try to come to as many events as they can. But as I said, July 4th, we'll be going to Barbary and doing an event there next Wednesday from 5 to 8 o'clock. We're going to be working with Tremblay September 4th. The event that we're going to be doing there, we're trying to do a gathering. Instead of doing community registration, we're looking at doing a community registration outside and having the groups there, so it'll be a big event at Tremblay Park. So we think that it will be something that will be well received. Still working on some information for that, and to get the sports groups, community groups, and anyone that believes in wellness or information about that. The book walk is up and going again this summer. Everybody active kits are being very well received. We're renting probably 2 to 3 a week, weekends, so that is great, and we'll be using them with the Shell Summer in the Park. And again, with summer camps, we are working with GPRC Wolves, partnerships with DC Watershed Society, Dawson Creek Karate, Mojo, Mark Fonda. Eric Wolf is helping us with archery as well as volleyball, Dawson Creek Art Gallery, Farmington Fairways, the rugby group. Tyrell Supernaut is coming back to help us with 3 events at the skateboard park and the Dawson Creek Public Library. So it's nice to have those groups and working together to provide events within the community. Are there any questions?
Good, thank you. Question, Councillor Parslow?
Shantae, you may not know the answer to this question. Sudetenland Hall. I attended the Historical Society barbecue meetings and stuff, and this topic was raised at that meeting, and I guess some individuals have expressed their sort of feelings that the hall should not be replaced. I've just said that decision has not been made by staff. But the question is, what is the status? I see all this monitoring taking place, right? Can you just refresh my memory, why is that monitoring taking place, and are there any action plans contemplated for the immediate future for this hall?
Sure, yeah. Okay. So, through your worship, council's direction was to mitigate any further damage, right? So staff went in there, we actually put in some sump pits. We had water coming through the wall in the basement, and we needed to mitigate that because it was coming through, hitting the floor and then disappearing, which, leads us to believe it's underneath, and we need to get that water out. So we put some sump pits in. The monitoring and the ongoing monitoring is to see if there's any other concerns that need to be mitigated. As council is aware, it's significantly deflected, and as we saw through our presentation with force, you hit a point in the curve where it doesn't go back. So we're trying to ensure, if we're not already there, that we don't allow it to get there, but I don't know where we're at just yet. So this is a result of council's direction.
And okay, so how long will this go on for before how much longer is the monitoring going to be in place before we have some proposals as to the future of this hall?
So the direction was for any plans moving forward to be included in the 2019 budget process. So we were going to monitor, mitigate, and bring it forward in 2019 in context with all the other projects that council's considering.
So a reasonable inference is the hall will obviously stay closed for 2018 and 2019 as well, seemingly.
Possibly, depending on what that looks like and where the facility is at. Again, that concern is we really need to determine if it's deflected so far that if we were to move it or lift it or do some work, that it wouldn't go back. There's some presented hazards, whether it be doors not opening properly because of deflection, or just the main floor itself and that curve. If that's not going to go back to original state, then the recommendation changes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further for Shantae? Shantae, the David, our flower and tree, and he did a session last year where open to the public for people to come and he could give them some advice, expertise. And do you know if we've got anything planned for this year for that? It was very, very well received, and I know I got tons of folks who attended said how good it was. And I wonder if we could talk about scheduling something again with him, if he'd be willing to host a...
So, digging in the dirt. The only concern or the complaint we got, it was great information. People had asked that maybe we could do it in the spring when it's a little fresher and maybe just kind of before they move into. So I think if we were going to look at it, we might look after Christmas and doing it kind of in that February, March as people are getting into the planting season.
I guess I was suggesting maybe if we could, because I know that, and I'm wondering if we could do something right away, like for the summertime.
I don't know if we could pull it together that quick, but we can definitely look. We'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
You got some questions, Julia?
No, I just no, I'm an expert now. I've got a plan. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. So, got a few things to go over in the report, a couple updates on some projects. Trucked waste handling facility, as of today, we've taken possession. Hagee is substantially complete. So we've got the keys. We'll be working, just getting things fired up over the next little bit here and make sure everything's good. So we're not going to just shut down the existing Sani dump just yet, just in case something. So we'll be just monitoring and managing that, but things will be moving along. Raw Water Reservoir, you probably saw an email go out to council late last week on where that's at and proposed shutdown of the raw water line. Right now, as it sits, proposing to do that early July 3rd, I believe was the day. We need to isolate that line so we can make 2 connections for the new raw water reservoir. Essentially, we will have trail reservoirs topped right up, and then that feeds right into the water treatment plant, so that takes care of the community. But we have to drain the line essentially from the Aris Fire Hall, which is where our heart reservoirs are, all the way to the new reservoir. So it's about pushing 10 kilometers of water line that we need to drain and deal with that. That is going to put a number of the properties that are connected to the raw water line out of water. Because we will not be pumping from the river either, because we essentially have nowhere to put that water. So everybody from the river to the 225 road, which is right where the trail reservoirs are essentially going to be down. And the contractor nodes has asked for a 2-week window just to allow for that work. We believe it'll be less than that, but again, that's, worst case scenario, that's kind of what they're anticipating. So,
Councilor Rogers?
How old is that water line? I think I already know.
well, yeah, I mean, so parts of that are original, so that would date back into when the U.S. Army installed it. No, it'd be in the 40s, some of it would be. We have new line from the river to the Hearts, which is at the Aris Fire Hall. That's brand new. That was done in the late 90s. And then we have existing line from Hearts to Trail, which is steel, and it's cathodically protected.
When was the last time we shut that down?
Well, a number of times it's shut down, but actually to shut it down and to cut into it and drain it, that we haven't done that in my time that I can recollect.
It would be shut down every time we are not pumping from the river?
Yeah, anytime the pump stop, but as far as actually cutting into it, and, of this significance, I don't recall. So.
Scary.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Councilor Schumann?
Around this water line, the properties affected, they're not using this water as, like, for their homes and stuff. That they use this for...
Well, they're not supposed to.
Because it's not potable, right?
No, it's raw untreated water. It's taking it right from the river. Our policy has it stated that the premise that these properties were allowed to connect in the past was that it was strictly for an agricultural purposes, i.e. watering livestock or watering gardens or something like that. But when we sent out notifications last week, we certainly heard from some concerned residents that might have things to the contrary.
So that raises the issue, if they are using it for domestic purposes as a potable source, the risk or liability for us as a city, and now we know that. Do we have a issue with that we need to better define legally? Because if somebody is using it for a potable source and gets sick, are we, now that we're aware of it, do we have an exposure there? Do we have a liability?
So we need to follow up, right, as the information comes in, but essentially this water is directly out of the river, untreated, unfiltered, directly out of the river.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do need to follow up to see what our risk and our liability is, and I'm not sure what that looks like just yet.
Do we need to get a direction to administration for that?
No, we're following up with it.
Good. Councillor Javecka?
So is the Harold Hansen Reservoir full?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't pump into there if it's full? So that's
right.
You wouldn't
yeah. So we pump from the river to Harold Hansen, then we pump from Harold Hansen to Hearts, and Hearts are the height of land. And the issue is Hearts are quite small. They're really just a air relief for the water to go through. So even if we were to drain down the Hearts and say, okay, we can turn on the pumps and provide water for the people from the river to Hearts, we'd fill the Hearts up in about a day or two. So it really doesn't provide us a lot of latitude.
Okay, I've got another question about the cemeteries. There was some stuff on Facebook, some issues about the cemeteries. Are you aware of anything, or?
I guess it depends on what those issues are, but...
I'm not sure. It wasn't clear to me, but
okay.
Just some general complaints about, I think it was the headstones or...
Okay. I can speak to that because I got a section on cemeteries I was gonna touch on, so maybe that'll answer the question. We'll see when we get there. Any more questions on the water reservoir? Okay, so anyways, good news is we're gonna have that connected by mid-July. Water should be, cleaning up nicely in the river, so that's gonna provide us an opportunity to start filling it, which is great news. So we'll be moving along with that.
Normal daily consumption for trail being full gives us
yeah, we've got over a month of water there. Probably, if I remember off the top of my head, we're probably pushing a couple months worth of water, so we're in good shape.
Okay.
And water use has been pretty consistent at a pretty manageable rate.
Councillor Parsons?
Just before you move off this, question to Councillor Rogers. Why did you use the word scary when Kevin was talking about this old
because we're talking
Second World War pipe?
We're talking exactly that pipe being...
What are the possibilities you're thinking about?
Well, no, because previously I've worked in, I've actually worked on that line as well. And any time you drain and fill a line that is that old, there's a significant risk that goes with it. If anything, if there is a problem with that line, actually with all the expertise in this area, we know how to move it without that line by putting in overland water lines.
Mm-hmm.
They're pumping it every day around here. We see it everywhere. So it's just, if there is an issue, chances are it happens when the line is being drained and filled. You just fill slow.
And shut-offs at each connection to each resident, so you've got sections of the line if you do experience an issue.
And we're working with the contractor, obviously, to go over different scenarios and to ensure that, if there are problems. We have the flexibility, again, as Councillor Rogers, but we can turn it on slow because, it's not dealing directly with in town. We have reservoirs to buffer that, so we'll work through it. We've had them double and triple check and make sure they've got everything they need and account for the unexpected. Water treatment plant expansion upgrade. So Bear Mountain Construction's in there and has been for a while now, and they're working away. And all the reports to me is that they're on track and things are going fine. Cemeteries. I provided in the report. This is speaking specifically to the new section in City Cemetery that we had expanded into. Our managers come up with some ideas on how we could provide things a little bit differently that would be better for the headstones and keep them from settling, and also from a maintenance perspective, much easier to maintain with less chance of damage. So what they're suggesting in our new section is providing what they call lawn beams or pillows of concrete. You'd run a strip in a section. Headstones would go back to back on that, sitting on them. So that would provide that support and keep them from settlement issues. And then when you're weed whipping and mowing, you're mowing up against the concrete strip as opposed to the headstone itself. So again, limiting opportunity for damage. So I really like the ideas, and I think it'd make it much more efficient. So we're working on that. We're getting some pricing. And as part of all of that, we're going to have to look at a bit of an update to the cemetery bylaw to look at fees and stuff, because there will be an added initial capital cost, but we believe decreased operational costs through that. So we'll be bringing something to council in the future on that. So But we plan to be moving into that new area and laying it out this summer, if that answers any of the questions. So things will be moving. Attached to the cow was the air quality report that we got from the ministry. So we finally got that summary. So it was a 5-year window that the ministry had sampling equipment on top of 2 schools, Frank Ross and South Peace, and that was 2012, 2017. And just quick summation of it is, over that period of time, the results were that concentrations of the PM 2.5 and the PM 10, which is the 2 different sizes of the particulate matter, remained below the provincial objectives in both sites for all years monitored. So good news. Nothing of concern that they noted in those 2 sampling stations.
But if I can add, that's just particulate
Just
matter.
particulate
Doesn't
dust.
deal with the host of chemicals that are in our air shed now,
No.
which is a completely different story.
Let's see, I thought I had one other thing highlighted in here I wanted to speak to. Probably the last thing was, I included some information that we'd received, just a little bit of legal advice on fees, charges, reclaim. It's kind of right at the back end of the report, but specifically around how fees and charges are meant to be associated directly with the service, and how the reclaim is slightly different than that. How that reclaim is that whole reclaimed water piece is really an optional commodity that the city owns, and so the same rules regarding fees and charges may not necessarily apply to that. So there's a lot of information there. If there's any questions, either Duncan or I can maybe speak to that.
So can I ask a question about,
Sure, go ahead.
that? Obviously, we're looking at every opportunity to increase our revenues. So have you done a study about that account, the reclaimed water account? What is your judgment about the capacity or the wisdom of siphoning money off from that area into general revenue, if it's legally possible?
So I'll jump in, Kevin. We have some preliminary information that Adam provided before he left, and it shows that for a period of time, the reclaim facility didn't recoup wasn't 100% cost recovery based on the fees. We had a pretty significant spike last year where we sold a lot of reclaim that we hadn't in previous years. But if you really, if council wanted to siphon off some of that money, we would recommend that we bring something back as far as long-term planning at the reclaim and those capital costs and what projected revenues are versus expenditures before we took that money out. We'd want to take a closer look at it, is all we would ask for. However, we've had some questions about fees and charges and how they work, and essentially what they've said is this fee has a door that people can choose to go through. They can either purchase the water or not. It's not like water going to their home where they have to take it. Therefore, because there's a door, we have a little more opportunity to do different things with that funding, is essentially what the legal advice was.
But we need to exercise care so we don't do what governments have done to BC Hydro and other utility commissions.
We don't want to solve a problem by creating a problem in another area, so we'd want to look at that first.
Sure.
So the string, how long the string is, will change in 2020?
Yeah, I think
at the expiration of the Shell agreement when they start paying for the water.
Yeah.
And so right now Shell, who can take 3,400 cubes a day, for January, February, and March, have now allocated that to Encana through that agreement. And that monthly is 92 or 82 or 25,000 cubes. And once Encana ramp back up again, they'll start to take it again. Our water and sewer utility infrastructure is built on a projection of what are our projects and how much are they going to cost. And so they have to be completely self-funded and ensure that that utility can handle the costs of the future as well as the cost of producing water. we can't build the reclaimed revenues into that model of our water and sewer utility because we don't know if we'll sell a single drop of it.
Yeah.
And so at some point in the future, once we have full control over selling 4,000 cubes a day, is when we understand the future opportunity that exists within the reclaimed water facility, and what kind of revenues, once you build that baseline, to say, is it going to generate $3 or $4 million a year? And then you build, to me, the business case of saying, are we going to spend 200 or 400 or 500,000 or $2 million a year, and allow that to be a self-funding, self-liquidating utility on its own, separate from our water and sewer utility. And I think we then, at that point, whoever the council is, can have the opportunity to build their projections of what that utility needs to generate in terms of revenues, and what do you do with the excess? There will be excess. Thank you.
Perfect. Actually, hence, you can follow up on page 9, I think it is, April and May. Shall they use any water? The reclaimed amount, monthly amount, way down compared to what it was in January.
Drilling stopped and Canada stopped, and no, they don't need it. So
yeah.
So would it be timely, as you're on this topic of services fees, to me to ask some questions about development service charges, or do you want that to wait?
Feel free.
So if I may, Dale, just ask some questions
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
that. It was interesting to look at this, and I don't, you know, when you get survey results, you've got to put your lens on them, right? But let's look at this, the survey results concerning fiscal gap. You know, where people, you could conclude, would like council to cut services before they start adding taxes, right? At this workshop last Monday, it was noted that we could expand our development service charges.
Cost charges?
Development cost charges, thank you. So, what are the possibilities there? I mean, what areas are other local governments applying development cost charges to? And related to that, as my understanding, and just correct my misunderstanding if I have one, is that those development cost charges are tied to a specific development project. So, would they in fact be a means of addressing a fiscal gap if they're tied to a project? And I guess the first question, what are the options? What things could we have development cost charges on that we don't have right now?
So just a couple things that I feel are important to distinguish there, and Duncan and I have chatted a bit about this. So it's a bit of an interesting one. So development cost charges are specific to growth and growth-related impacts. So if something, i.e. subdivision occurs and there's growth, there's expansion, they're placing an impact specifically on whether it's the water treatment plant or, you know, a road or a storm system. So you're right, it has to be a specific impact. And so what it is it's really, development cost charges are there to fund new infrastructure, growth-related infrastructure, whether that's an expansion at a water treatment plant, whether that's an additional lane on a road because of the growth. The important part there that I see to make sure we're clear on is that it does not pay for the maintenance of that infrastructure, whatever that infrastructure may be, forevermore. Maintenance is up to taxation, the utility funds, whatever, to pay for it. So DCCs will help you acquire that infrastructure, build it, whether that's a water line or a treatment plant. But after that, it'll be up to the city to pay to maintain that infrastructure through its regular means. So it helps you build it initially, but it doesn't help you maintain it. So, for instance, if you were to have DC development cost charges for roads, that's not going to help you pave all the roads in town. That is only going to help you expand your road network, specifically related to growth and wherever that growth may be. So in a sense, it will be adding assets to your inventory, which you will then have to forever look after. So it's a bit of a double edge there. As far as where you can go with development cost charges, roads is one area, storm sewer is another area, and parks is another area. And I think we have water and sewer, and I think those, was there any others that you noted, Doug?
No.
So those are the different areas. We're into 2 of them with water and sewer.
Okay, so a supplementary question then, as it relates to storm sewers. The replacement of our existing storm sewer system, which I've heard $30 million figures thrown at that, would not be aided by a development service charge, but the installation of storm sewers in a new subdivision could be.
No, I'll qualify that as,
Okay.
is some of that $30 million that is in the storm sewer master plan
Yes.
would be related to future growth and those impacts. They would have been looking ahead and saying, you know, you need to, so I believe some of that to deal with future growth would be in there, but not all. Some of it might be simply just a condition issue, and you need to replace this pipe with just a newer version of that same pipe. DCCs are not gonna pay for that. If you needed to replace that pipe with a bigger pipe because of growth, DCCs would fund the growth portion, but not the existing pipe.
I
So
got
it's
it.
very complex.
No, yeah, but you're helping me understand it better. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Anything further? You got any more? Good.
No.
Try to keep
I didn't know if you got through or not.
That's good.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
And 10th Street, we should just say is wide open and
10th is open.
completed and
Landscaping will be occurring over the next couple of weeks, weather depending, but shouldn't cause any traffic disruptions.
And one last one, the water treatment plant, the construction
Yep.
is underway.
It's moving away, it's underway and going well. In line to be in service late fall, so that's good. And just some other road projects will be starting up here. Again, weather depending is probably the next one that they want to get going on is 15th Street, between 108 and the bridge specifically. We're installing some storm sewer and tearing up the road there, so that will cause some traffic disruption, and that'll be starting probably later this week or early next.
Councillor Parsley, you had-
Sorry, related to the 10th Street Bridge, I remember at a council meeting advocating that you see this in loads of different communities, that we start the practice of having commemorative plaques like the schools do and many other communities, so people know, get a bit of the history over time. I thought council supported that. Is that true? And I
Yeah, there
thought
was a policy, sorry, through yours, there's a policy. It was added in a policy. I thought it was new, but I'll have to, new construction, but we'll
so
have
the
to go back
question
and
is,
look
this
at
being
it.
applied to the 10th Street Bridge?
It hasn't been yet. We'll have to go back and look at it. I thought for some reason it applied to new construction, not renovation, but or replacement, sorry, we'll look.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Next up, we have Patrick's here, our airport manager. Morning, Patrick.
Morning, everyone. So, usually I take a long time, but I'm going to keep it pretty short today. So I'll just get into it. So strategic priorities, we have not applied for any ACAP funding this year. However, there are still funding projects that we had previously still in place, which is the subsurface and the runway overlay. I attended a couple conferences in the last month and had some good conversations with BCAP and Transport Canada, the ACAP people, regarding that potentially if it was the direction to go ahead with the runway extension, if it was a possibility to tie in all these projects at once. So they're in the loop on that, and it seems like a good possibility, and they're making it a priority, which is good. Operational strategies, we kept it the same, so we've developed proactive safety reports. We have 5 to date. Every month we we sit down as a crew and we try and develop one proactive safety report. We've developed 5 so far. I'm now distributing a safety and security newsletter to all the other parties at the airport, so we're all on the same page regarding it, and that seems to be going well. So 0 K-doors, everything's been going well. Safety's been up. We'll get into the other information. So CMA keeps continuing their service, and they actually switched to the south terminal now. So they are not operating out of the main terminal anymore. I happened to actually fly out of the south terminal yesterday, and it was a pretty good experience. I mean, I didn't have to wait in security for 20-30 minutes. That was a bonus. Less congestion. There might be some confusion with passengers regarding connecting flights, but other than that, it seems to be going well. Getting into Integra. So they have stopped coming in, and so they are currently only operating 1 flight right now, and that is Bonnyville to Calgary. Starting off the year, they had 6 flights. They cut back out of all those other places, and they're only operating out of Bonnyville and Calgary. A lot of speculation on where they're heading, but they're trying to readjust what their game plan is going forward. So that's all up in the air right now. So we've seen a lot of charter aircraft come in. A lot of charter numbers have been strong. A lot of new people coming in, companies that we haven't really seen before. One day in Canada flew in 3 big jets, and it was nice to see that. They had around 100 people get off of all 3. So, I mean, that was really good to see. And we were seeing an increase of general aviation aircraft coming in right now, which is very good because they contribute a lot to our fuel sales. And that's awesome to see. Up to the end of May, we had 92 medivacs. Over the last month, it's picked up quite a bit as well. So we've been seeing around 3 a day. I know I was supposed to get numbers and a chart made, but I guarantee you I'll do that for the next one. So passenger numbers have dropped a little. Last year we had 3,775 to the end of May. This year we're at 3,360. Aircraft movements dropped. So moving on to that, Canadian Owners and Pilots Association, we held a Copa for Kids event. It was a great event. It was awesome to see and give kids an opportunity to fly in a small plane right next to the controls. I mean, every single kid that was there just left the plane smiling from ear to ear, and it was awesome. So, parents loved it, kids loved it, and we enjoyed putting it on for them. So we'll probably make that an annual event. If we can, we'll try and do it twice a year. We can get the support, but that was a great success. So I attended actually 3 conferences now in the last month. I'm pretty tired of traveling and doing all that, but it is what it is. So the big thing is not only the pilot shortage, but Transport Canada is revamping all the regulations. So they're changing their whole regulations, and they're making it so that it's not a one-size-fit-all anymore, because they're realizing that this doesn't work. There's smaller guys like us that some regulations may not apply to as much as YVR. So they're trying to figure out ways to create their own efficiencies and make it a bit easier for us smaller guys. Another big thing that they were talking about was how air travel is increasing at a rate that even the big guys are having trouble keeping up with. So 7.8 billion people flew last year, 145 out of Canada. I mean, it's growing at a rate of 2% every year. They don't see a decrease in sight. So, I mean, it's with all these new airlines coming in, ultra low cost carriers, people are going to start flying even more because now it's even more affordable. So that's a big thing in the aviation industry. The big guys are starting to establish themselves as mega hubs, and they just want more smaller guys to keep feeding them, essentially. So yeah, last week WestJet Link started their services. That's huge for the regional airports across Alberta right now. So that's a very good sign. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was I gave a very technical response in the report about the Tetra Tech business case that was done regarding the 5,872 feet that is needed for a Q400. So essentially, the simple answer is that the 5,872 feet that is listed in that report is based on worst case scenarios. So we're talking full flight load, max fuel for 1.5 hours with one engine out. So this is like an emergency circumstance. That is what they would need. Essentially, so if you actually reference that table, it actually says at the bottom that it is based on one engine out. There's so many different factors that can come into play, whether it's pilot experience, the weather conditions, etc. But this is just a reference estimate that they give to, it's an international standard, and they come up with these estimates to kind of give an idea, but it's not as accurate as it really is. So there's a lot of other factors that come into play. They just do what they can based on a worst case scenario. So that is essentially how they come up with the number. Question?
Thanks, Patrick. Councillor Parslow?
Yes, Patrick, in your last paragraph there,
yeah,
it's in the third sentence. You write, the question asked is whether a Q400 can land, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was also if they could take off.
Yeah.
And so, based upon what you just said, I could insert take off as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So part of this is I think it was last year or maybe the year before when places like Phoenix were closed because of high temperature and they didn't have enough lifting, right?
Yes.
And so the question in my mind, well, if this is at 22 and we experienced 30-degree weather here last week, does how much would that be a factor given that we have just a margin of 100 and something feet?
So down in Phoenix, the air is, so this is what I learned in school.
Sure.
Because they actually touched upon this. Because there was a good example. So in Vegas, the weather got up to around 40 degrees, and they had a 737 trying to take off, and it wasn't generating any lift. So when there's hot air in the atmosphere, the air particles actually are so small and actually scattered compared to colder air, so they can't generate that lift, which is why, like in Phoenix, when it gets to that hot air, I mean, it's hard for planes to actually generate enough air for the plane to actually lift off. Over here, that would be, I think we would probably need to get into the high 30s for that to be the case. And if that was the case, I mean, these pilots are experienced in that. They wouldn't even attempt something like that unless they really needed to in an emergency circumstance. The main thing is, like, they're basing this 5,872 feet on the fact that there's only one engine, which results in a big difference, because now you only have half of the power to stop you in that circumstance. And if they were in that emergency situation, the pilots would have to make that call in the air within minutes, and pick either us, Grand Prairie, or Fort St. John to get down safely. And if, let's say, they were taking off in that weather and one engine blew, that would be something that the pilots would have to take into circumstance based on their flight load and their fuel load, if they would even attempt it or not. So, I mean, there's a lot of pre-flight planning that these pilots have to do. And a big thing is that they take into account for is in case an engine goes out, is their flight load gonna affect that number? So if they know that they have maximum flight, like maximum takeoff weight, they probably won't attempt it. So, I mean, it's pilots that make those decisions, and they're the ones that are trained for it. And all we can do is just accommodate them to the best that we can.
Thanks, Patrick. Anything further?
Well, just a comment to Patrick. Do you believe that Mohamed Salah was fouled deliberately by Romero?
Yes, I do.
So do I. He should have been thrown off. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's okay. England's doing good, though.
Good segue.
Very
Thank you.
important topic, this Liverpool stuff.
You sticking around?
Thanks, Patrick.
No problem.
Yes.
Patrick.
Are you sticking around for a few minutes?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no fall.
Good morning, Mr. McIver.
What's that?
Welcome.
Welcome. I appreciate for the second time in a row you're leaving the best for last. I will make sure it is very brief.
Can I get a coffee now?
Tourism is always last, aren't they?
So one of the things that it's been a month since Cal, right? So I just know a couple of comments. One, my father-in-law passed a couple weeks ago, and so with the our annual report and stuff, and the reporting and stuff, just thank you for the time to get through that. So I did ensure that we put the annual report in. I know that you received it for information, but I thought it was worthwhile just to maybe highlight just a couple of points within it. First of all, it's the first annual report based on the new contract and the new structure and stuff, and some of the reporting purposes and practices for you. I think the big thing for you is that we have seen a increase in events and activities in terms of local use and activity and nonprofit use, and we've tried some different activities with different recreational groups within the community to use the venue. So we have seen a increase in use of the building. Obviously, we had the U17s, which again was a very well-attended event, met and exceeded all expectations again. So we're very proud of that. We saw an increase in our food and beverage activities and service levels, and the investment in, we call it the snack cart, and it actually is, within the year it's paid for itself, so it was a good investment to do that, and it was provided, although something very small and simple, it's provided us much more opportunity to deliver things outside of the main concourses, etc. Our energy level, I know that every year we send a very long email in comparison and very technical spreadsheets out to administration. The good news is despite climbing costs of utilities by BC Hydro and gas and all that stuff, our gas usage went down 2.11%, but it's the lowest usage ever in the venue history. So that's just a measure of us, calibrating the boilers, managing some of the use within the building of, managing when our occupancy sensors, et cetera, and just, turning, the building down or offices down an extra degree or unoccupied space. Electricity, although there was use, et cetera, the overall aspect of it was the costs keep going up with electricity, but the overall investments that keep going into the facility of LED lighting and tubes have all made a dramatic impact in terms of the costs and replacement, etc. So there's a few small little areas that still need to be done, and then the event center bowl, etc. is sort of the last area we're looking at to plan on that. Big aspect to what was new last year was we rolled out, as part of the new contracts, an opportunity to do regional ticketing to extend our reach outside the building. to help the community. So we launched ticketsinthepeace.com, and then we worked with a partner and subleased out to north of the river, energetictickets.ca. So it's providing a platform, a local platform for community groups, organizations, sports groups, or registration forms, or whatever, to ticket their events or do registrations instead of using the traditional, say, Eventbrite or other ticketing platforms that are out there. What it really is provides a local opportunity, but also a local marketing platform as well. Our experience, again, over 84% of the respondents of our surveys that go out, whether it be the annual survey or a post-event survey, are all still very positive in terms of the overall rankings. And then in terms of our financial overview of for 2017, again, and I need to check the number, but I believe we're the 8th year or 9th year in a row where we are again under budget in terms of the finances for you, so a savings to you. Again, increase in our Facebook reach and the people that we touch and target. In terms of the contract renewal and the strategies that was set forth in that document that was presented to you, the vast majority of those strategies have been implemented, have been achieved, etc. There are a few that are still undergoing, whether that be relating to the unfinished space or some of the public good aspects of working through with that. And I know that we've met a couple times and we're working with is it Community Services, Parks and Rec, to work through of how to work through that. Most recently, this past 2 weekends ago, was the try event activity. So it was like come to the building, try pickleball, try a sport pickleball, and a whole bunch of different aspects of that. So just trying to, again, work with our partners and stuff, tries to maximize use and opportunities. You know, we talked about U17, and you've received those reports before, so I don't want to really work through that. But the big aspect of our in-house events and just trying to be creative in the use of the space. Really proud last year, it's a big number. Over $92,000 was generated through either donated or generated by the aspect of things that the event center does, whether it be handing out tickets to like fundraisers or donating guitars to organizations. So we track all of that, but also through the food and beverage in terms of donating food or nonprofit organizations as a way to decrease some of our overhead expenses with staffing, but generate revenue opportunities for nonprofit organizations as a fundraising effort. So it's a large amount. I think it's the largest amount that's ever in the 10 years has been given back or throughout the community. So I think it's a really positive aspect. I really just want to highlight the fact that we did win the Race for Hunger again, and we plan on securing for a 3rd year in a row our space with that.
That sounds like a challenge.
With
I see
respect
the
to
eyebrow
tourism,
move.
I got his attention. I don't know. It's high. With respect to tourism, I have a couple. I think I only brought one for Mayor and Council. Just grab one. I need one. If you guys could share. I know sharing's good. Sharing.
Shaylee and I'll share.
So with tourism, this is from April 1st to June 30th. So by the time we did the report and stuff, and the time, whatever, half of, most of June was sort of tied up. So I don't have some specific stats for you for the month of June. So when we come back, we'll have pretty much the summer taken care of and all the stats and facts for you in terms of the numbers that we're collecting, and so we can provide some metrics for you on that. I think one of the important things too is that we're still in the process of just going through that transition, although we're really in that aspect of moving things forward. Working with our partners, we met with the Mile Zero Park Society at their board meeting. We have become members instead of just active participants in some of these organizations. So we're member of the Art Gallery, the South Peace Historical Society, where in previous years we were just sort of like friends, right? But now we've made the $10, $25 investment to be part of their membership, so we get the information directly and just be active participants with that. Attended the job fair at South Peace Senior Secondary, and just trying to grow those relationships and create the new relationships that perhaps weren't there before. think the important thing relating to some of the, as per the tourism business plan with destination development, just a ton of aspect relating to updating all the brochures and information for the visitor season, the website of just trying to get access to it, updating it so it actually meets current code or website code, internet code, whereas there was some of those investments weren't maintained, so it took some time to ensure that we could actually view it on your mobile device properly, et cetera, et cetera. We moved, we helped assist the transfer of the Army truck to the South Peace Historical Society. We moved the mobile visitor center down to the Mile Zero Cairn. So the mobile visitor center was a program through Destination British Columbia, and what we've done is we really wanted to see how much leakage there was, that people just stop at the cairn, get their picture at the world famous, entering the now famous, world famous Alaska Highway, and what happens, and we're seeing this very positive results that people are just taking their picture and sort of carrying on. So us, by specifically putting the mobile visitor center out, some flags, a table, some brochures, etc., to help take people's pictures at the cairn, instead of the selfies or whatever, right? We actually have that touch point. We're now driving to actually traffic to the visitor center to help educate them more. So we've seen that as a positive step. We'll continue that as a beta test. There's a lot of beta testing that we're doing for this visitor season just to see what's working and not, and how to then grow it for next year. But we've seen that as a very positive step. We're looking at all the visitor center signage in NAR Park is all faded, all cracked. So we're making the investment to update that. Because a lot of with tourism, right, it's first impressions. If your signs look terrible, are you really in business or not? So we're going through those aspects. We are now part of the Northern Trails Historical Society, where they're working with all the municipalities and historical societies within the Northeast BC to create a map and a trail map and kiosks to help people get around the region into the historical aspects of the Northeast BC. And then we're also doing the audit of the downtown walking tour, the Pioneer Village walking tour, and NAR Park. With respect to product development, this again has all been beta testing, but we're reviewing the Signature Experiences program. We've revamped the Alaska Highway House. Some of the technology has been outdated, couldn't get fixed in terms of this year, so we've made some stopgap measures just to hide it, protect it, and then get into it into the fall to review it. But with that, we really wanted to ensure that within tourism, it's a strong belief of mine that when you go somewhere and you visit an attraction, a museum, something, that you should pay for admission. There's lots of varied reasons about it. It provides value, gives you perceived value, etc. And so one of the things that we wanted to do that we created was the Mile Zero Master Pass. It's being beta tested for this summer. And what it is really all the aspects of relating to Dawson Creek from a very large or general picture of admission. So instead of pulling out your wallet 5 times, go to the art gallery and pull out for, a suggested donation, or, the art to the NAR Park Museum, to Alaska Highway House and Pioneer Village and a few other things, what we tried to do is just make it easy. So you just pay, in this case, $25, and it gets you access into all the attractions in Dawson Creek and a bunch of other stuff. So we really want to make it easy for the visitor when they come, much like when you go to any other community tourist areas that they sell these passes and make it, again, easy. What we do is, we collect the money, and then we're going to submit the money back to all the different organizations that are involved, again. So, we were selling, for example, the personalized Mile Zero certificate. Well, now we've included, again, we're trying to provide ways and touch points to the visitor to make their experience memorable and easy, giving them their collector's pin, 10% off the visitor center, the self-guided walking tour downtown, admission to the art gallery, 10% off at their gift shop. Get your picture taken at the milepost, so we'll go out and help them get their picture instead of like everyone trying to figure out who can help them, right? Or a local, is there someone there or not? Admission to the Alaska Highway House collector's pin, Pioneer Village, and then on the way out of town, don't forget to stop at Kiskatna Bridge. So there's a single, there's a double, and then a family pass. We think it's an interesting opportunity, and we're, again, beta testing it. The other big aspect that we've done is relaunch Be a Tourist Your Own Town. We believe that there's definitely an opportunity for our locals to have a better understanding of what's going on in their community. So the investment in some direct mailers. This coming week we have Counselor to Counselor on the 29th for you to participate in, but also a barbecue and different organizations to come together to help celebrate with the art gallery and different organizations to get people out in awareness that there are lots of things to see and do within your community. The sport and event tourism plan was, again, I believe, passed at the last council meeting. And with that, you know, we're in the process of now rolling it out, taking the next steps. We have reached out to a few sport groups and organizations that are hosting events and activities. First of all, the first or second one is the Disc Golf Association. They're hosting a couple of regional meets, but they're also looking at hosting the provincials, so we're in contact with them. But also, I know there was a comment or question that came out of council last time about the committee with respect to granting or the...
So there's to your worship, a question regarding whether we would have a committee directly working with tourism or directly involved with this.
And the short answer is and from how we see it, the short answer is no. We believe you're the committee of council. I don't know if there's a need for a second committee. I think there's a aspect that staff and contractors can do for you to help maybe vet the application, help identify the process, etc., but believe that you can make that final determination, much like a staff recommendation back. I'm not sure adding another layer is needed, but that's I think my perspective or opinion.
And that's not speaking to the Tourism Advisory Committee, whose role is oversight of implementation of strategies and oversight of the vision and the goals, as opposed to hands-on. And council committed to relook at that Tourism Advisory Committee after we got set up and had established a program.
And really from the marketing aspect, we're just rolling through the different aspects of the tourism cycle is really a year and a half out, so we're actually by the time with the contract changes and whatever, we couldn't affect anything, couldn't change any branding, couldn't change any messaging, whatever, and we're going through that process now. So we're just trying to work through the aspect of what are the target markets, who are we focusing on, etc. But we did meet last week with all the communities in Northeast BC with respective tourism aspects and the delivery of and the programming and the pooling cooperative marketing money that exists. So Dawson Creek, we are investing $12,000, Fort St. John 12, Fort Nelson 12, and can't remember the numbers for the other communities, and it all goes in a pot, and then it gets doubled or matched by the Northern British Columbia or Destination BC, and that leverages the marketing activities for Dawson Creek and the rest of the Northeast BC in terms of the aspect. So it's a good investment, and we're just working through the marketing tactics with respect to that right now.
But Ron,
yes, sir.
don't we already get marketing through Destination BC already? So are they just wanting more now?
No, it's the same. So the money that we get from Destination BC to the City of Dawson Creek, or through Tourism City of Dawson Creek, is for the visitor center. That's approximately 20 grand. Yeah. Other than that, the rest of the money is applied for by a funding program, and there's a marketing consortium made up of the communities in Northeast BC.
The destination marketing is funded by the BC government already. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to already be doing the marketing for us, in my opinion.
So Destination BC markets, yeah. So no, Destination BC markets the province of British Columbia. Yeah. That's their role and responsibility, right? And they have different target markets that they're attracting people to come to the province, and then they have six tourism regions: Northern BC, Thompson Okanagan, the Kootenay Rockies, Vancouver Island, etc. Right? And they get a pot of money to market and develop tourism in the north, let's say for Northern British Columbia tourism, and they have a pool of money, and Destination BC has a pool of money, and what happens is they take pool of money from A, Destination BC, pool money from Northern BC, and then the communities, and collectively come up with a plan that identifies the markets, the needs and wants, for lack of a better word, in our case Northeast BC, to market Northeast BC.
Okay, but in 2-3 years ago, I sat at the Calvin Cook Center
With,
and I listened
Marsha,
to
yeah.
everybody there.
Yeah.
And they weren't even happy with what Destination BC was doing for marketing at that point. So I'm kind of skeptical about, investing any more money into them when their focus is the lower mainland and Vancouver Island. Because anything that comes out of Destination BC, all you see is whales. And
Well, to be fair, last week, 2 weeks ago on Saturday morning, Destination BC focused on Northeast British Columbia, Muncho Lake, the Alaska Highway, Tumbler Ridge, etc. So they have marketing plans and people and whatever. And so I swear it was 2 weeks ago, through Global News, right? They were marketing, promoting Northeast BC on Global News in the morning and played some footage, etc., and hashtagged it in the whole 9 yards. And then I do know that Destination BC is revamping their website, but some of the sector, the markets, the products, the delivery, the messaging, the marketing, the whole thing, right? The first time ever, there will be a section on the Alaska Highway.
Yeah, because I get all of their emails and I know that they're redoing everything.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilbur?
Well, I'm kind of going to add on to that. So I've spent the last year twice a month with Northeast section of Destination BC, and they are looking at signage, each separate little section that they have, and speaking to those communities and people and saying what's working, what's not working, and how do we get a unified message so it includes all of BC. So they are doing the work, and it's a huge project, and it's a 10-year outlook plan. So it's coming, and greatly enough, people from all over different areas of BC were able to participate in it. But I will tell you, it was very extensive, and people dedicated a lot of time to get that information out.
Thank you. Anything further, Ryan? Questions, Councillor Rogers.
Okay. So I was almost going to do this in new councillor business, and I chose to just save it for you, Ryan.
Okay.
Anyway, I was at South Peace Senior Secondary School. We were at the athletic committee. So when you're sitting around a room with 30 people from the school system, and coaches and supporters and everything, through that committee, there was talk about volleyball zones, wanting to put on zones for volleyball anyways, and then the conversation in that meeting turned around to the Canada Event Center. Why is it we can't have basketball in there? You could actually have a couple of games going at the same time. Same with volleyball, you could have I don't know how many it fits, but 3 or 4 games going at the same time. And I know that we've been working on that. But I tried to explain to him the council's decision to go with a sports tourism type model, and they said basically what came out of that meeting was tell tourism to come and see us, because there's a lot of events that that the groups want to put on in Dawson Creek, but we don't have the space. Like they've had basketball tournaments in the past, and we've seen it when they're in town. They'll take up 2 or 3 schools. But the whole conversation was, it'd be so much better and so much bigger if we could get everybody in one venue, and then it would be it would be easier on everybody else. Then, all of that came around to the hoteliers. We heard about it here today already, where the hotels are partially empty, or they're not full, or they don't have as many people staying in them as they want. But when you get a sports group phoning in from Prince George wanting to book a hotel room, and they're charging $185 a night, that doesn't fit into anybody's budget. So you know, if the hoteliers are looking at diversifying their business to attract more people in, this is the way of doing it. And I know I've talked about the MRDT tax several times. You know, if they want to invest in that, I still have a severe problem with why they are not investing in tourism, because through a sports tourism model, that's going to be bringing a lot of people into town, which will generate economic development for everybody in our town. Anyways, so the next meeting, I'll let you know, I guess, and if you want to come and attend that.
Absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of questions that would like to be asked. I mean, or you can have any suggestions what you would like me to take back to that group.
Sure. Thank you. Anything further for Ryan?
Just a compliment. I love this.
Yeah, good idea.
I love this.
No love though.
And it's, well, they come downtown, and we're doing something with tourism and love Dawson Creek, actually, coming out in the future for you to see, and it's going to be awesome. I'm wondering, though, is there some sort of little flyer or marketing material that could be used to be sent down to, that I or any counselor could send down to people they know that may be coming up in caravans? So I have a gentleman.
Sorry, where to?
Come up here in caravans. So
Right.
I have a gentleman from Palm Springs that brings 2 caravans up from all over the states. They meet here and start out. They would totally buy into that prior to leaving home. So if there was something that we could send out, or I could
Yes.
send him to say, hey, don't forget to get your pass, that would be awesome. But I love these.
Thank you.
Great.
So the next one is being sent out here shortly,
Okay.
the next month, with the Mile Zero Pass. We just met with Fantasy Tours, Fantasy Caravans, and their president came through on the Alaska Highway up on a tour. For us, it's a cycle. All their pricing and everything's been set, so we look to working with them for next year to, you know, when they're bringing 40, 50 people through at a time, right? Or groups, which is like 100 people, right? Because everyone's in pairs, for us to hit them. So it's again, it's a cycle of it. I do know at the visitor center we do have some literature that we can get out, so we can make sure we get you a copy of that.
Yes.
But our plan is to hit the caravan companies and bus tours, et cetera, here this fall for next year.
So leading off on that, maybe get it out to the RV companies. This gentleman actually, there's usually 22 RVs that come up, and he actually works for the RV company, and they put them together and do this big, huge tour, and Dawson Creek's a huge part of it. So RV companies is another one, because it's a whole new marketing concept we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Any other business for council? Motion to adjourn? Councilor Wilbur, Schumann, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.